Everyone, I'm going to call this meeting to order. If you could please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance and salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the regular meeting minutes.
Chair, I move to approve the agenda. Do we have to approve the agenda first? Approve the agenda?
Approval of the regular meeting agenda.
Yeah, I move we approve the agenda. My hearing is bad.
I'll second.
I notice I haven't adjusted.
Okay, we have a first by, we have a motion by Commissioner Brown, second by Commissioner Billings. Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We can have reports from the elected official reports. Sheriff Gomez, can you start us off, please?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Just a little bit before I give you some of the stats that we've had for this month and from the last, kind of a progress report of what's going on. So our DARE program for the current school year completed the following schools and had a formal DARE graduations. 4 schools that we actually completed our DARE graduations were with Stout Elementary, Harrison Smith Elementary, Calvary Chapel, and Cliff 5th grade schools. So we won't be, in regards to the schools, we won't be using our DARE program again as far as the curriculum until August when we go into the Culver School District. One of the things that we were able to do was I sent 3 more deputies to get certified as DARE officers, and we have combined with Silver City Police. Now that Chief Portillo has taken over, he wanted the DARE program as well with the Silver City Police Department. So between us and the Sheriff's Office and Silver City Police, we are combining together teams and working our schools. So it's been very fortunate and very beneficial for our kids and for both agencies. Myself and Under Sheriff Watkins participated in a Hachita community meeting last week. I did invite Sheriff Ganaway and Captain Brown from Luna County. And the meeting was very successful. The residents were really happy that we set that meeting, and it was more just questions and answers on their end. And we have increased our stone garden, so they are seeing more visibility between us and Luna County out there. So I just wanted the people from Hachita to know that we didn't forget them, and due to our short staff that we haven't had that mass coverage. But with Stone Garden again, and where our guys are being assigned is in the Hachita area, so that went really well. One of the biggest concerns that they had, which we don't have the enforcement action to do, was on the immigration that's going in through Antelope Wells and going into Hachita. The Sheriff's Office continues to send staff to advanced and specialty law enforcement training, including CVSA, that's the voice analysis stress, the basic narcotic investigator, stop the bleed, first aid, and CPR instructors, crisis intervention training. As a matter of fact, I have 2 deputies right now in Albuquerque that are getting certified as crisis intervention specialists. AR-15 rifle armor school, advanced child sexual abuse investigations, training with the New Mexico DOT law enforcement hypnosis, the traffic grant programs and management, verbal de-escalation training, National Humane Investigator School, and National Certification for all forms of animal cruelty investigations and prosecution. We met yesterday with HIDA, the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area. An agreement was signed with us and HIDA. And HIDA is funding narcotic agent positions and enforcement programs moving forward with the Sheriff's Office to target these issues in Grant County. There was funding for intelligence. Starting next Monday, we will have someone from the Department of Homeland Security that will be at the Sheriff's Office for 90 days. They're pretty much our liaison between us and the federal government on intelligence, that we'll be using them, and they'll be, like I said, they'll be stationed there. They'll have an office there at the Sheriff's Office for the next 90 days. Operation Stone Garden activities continue in all 3 operational Stone Garden operational areas of U.S. Highway 180 East and West and the Hachita area. MOU with Luna County and the Sheriff's Office was completed on a blanket cross-commissioning staff to enhance the Stone Garden operations and general coverage in Hachita area. Multiple joint operations are planned for the future. The outside funding options are being explored by multi-agency public safety groups, and the New Mexico DOT Education Enforcement Funds are being applied for to purchases on buying stop sticks. Stop sticks would be, say we had a vehicle that was in pursuit where our deputies are trained and certified to use a stop stick to throw on the road, and it doesn't blow a tire out, it slowly will puncture a tire to continue as a safety in our operations. We are currently moving forward with establishing a crisis intervention program, supportive policies and procedures. So once our guys get back, we'll get with them and we'll be submitting a policy on crisis intervention and having a team. We're currently looking and moving forward with planning and establishing a special response team jointly with the Silver City Police Department. We've met a few times with Chief Portillo and his staff, and it's the early versions of it still, but between us and Silver City, hopefully here soon, we'll have a special response team that any crisis calls here in Grand County, we'll be able to handle them on our own. And morale remains high, and our staff are enthusiastic about the future. Things are going really great with our guys. The short staff that we've had, everyone's come together. Guys are happy, and it's nice to see from court security to our patrol divisions, our criminal divisions, and civil divisions, how they've united as one, and they're working great. And I can't say anything but great about my guys. They're really doing a great job. So I'd like to just present some of our stats that we've had. These are comparisons from January 16th to April 16th of 2019 versus, March 16th of 2019 to April 16th of 2019 versus March 16th of 2018 to April 16th of 2018, just a comparison. So our burglaries have gone up for the month. During this time, we've had 7 burglaries, where last year we only had 1. Domestic violence is an increase. We've had 21 versus 19 last year. Our traffic stops, even though we are shorthanded and stuff, our guys are still increasing their traffic patrols. And for now, we've had 219 traffic stops versus 179 last year. Our DARE program has dramatically increased, and not just are we in the schools. Here coming soon, we'll be having a foster parent appreciation day where CYFD sets up, and our DARE program has been invited to attend. Also, we're getting ready for the Red Chili Fiesta that's done at Penny Park that we'll be participating as well. Loud music complaints have gone up from 10 of this month to 3 of last year. Suspicious vehicles, 16 versus 7 of last year. And here shows the decrease of the shortness of our staff on doing frequent patrols. This year so far we have 186 versus last year 394. On reckless driver complaints, we've had 20 for the month versus 14 last year. Unwanted subject calls has been a very sharp increase of 12 for the month versus last year of 5. Citizen contacts, again, being the decrease due to staffing shortages. We've had 18 citizen contacts versus last year of 38. Suspicious person calls, 13 versus last year of 1. And the special detail has increased since we're opening up with the Stone Garden, and here soon we'll be starting with the New Mexico DOT grant funds. We've had 30 versus last year 11. On vehicle accidents, for the month of this year, we've had 14. Last year we had 3. The total crashes from January till now we're at 67 crashes that the Sheriff's Office has investigated. Our civil division, for March of 2019, total DVO, domestic violence orders that were served is 15. Up till April 17th of this month, our civil division on domestic violence orders have served 14. On notices and attempts, for the end of March was 85. So far for April, we're at 52. Subpoenas, March was 152. We're at 85 now. The summons in March were 61. Up till April 17th, we're at 47. Our writs of notices in March was 5. And so far up till April 17th, we have 4. Our civil division on transports outside of Grant County, in March, they put 2,901 miles. And as of April 17th for this month, they're at 2,227 miles. And one other thing, Chairman Ponce, you had asked on the mining district calls. So our CAT system is a pretty old system, and we try to track it as best as we can, but for January 1st up till April 16th, the mining district, we have had a total of 159 calls in the mining district, which would include Baird, Santa Clara, and Hurley. Anything from fraud, embezzlements, warrants, game and fish, domestic violence orders, harassments, welfare checks, animals, civil standbys, serving papers and warrants, motorist assists, abandoned vehicles, unwanted subjects, citizen contacts, civil process, suspicious persons, open doors, special details, suspicious activity, and domestic violence. So, due to the mining district and the shortage that they have, we are taking a lot of calls in the mining district right now. Hopefully, I know Santa Clara is at 3. Baird is at 3 right now, but they're only working 2, and of course Hurley only has 2. So, any emergency calls, of course, that we are gonna respond to those calls. So it's busy for our patrol guys, and it does show on our citizen contacts and frequent patrols that we're more right now in the reaction stage than proactive in our frequent patrols and what we're doing. I stand for any questions if you have.
Do we have any questions?
I do. Sure, do you, once all Santa Clara and Hurley are full staff, are they going to be 24 hours?
Since I've been at the sheriff's office, they've never been at full staff. Baird has always been the one that has had 24/7 coverage, and the other 2 agencies, even if they're full staff, the way they work it, we're always usually there at nighttime, covering Santa Clara and Hurley. Like I said, for the most time in Baird, this is the first time in a long time that we've actually been covering calls in Baird. They've been able to take care of their own. But Santa Clara and Hurley, I pretty much will be still taking a lot of calls there.
Thank you.
Sheriff, thank you so much for that report. I really, really appreciate the thoroughness of your report. Just want to say that. So on the mining district calls, what is full staff for Hurley, Santa Clara, and Baird?
I know with the city of Baird, usually they have 6. Santa Clara right now has 3 in the security officers. I guess my understanding when I met with Mayor Bouch is that they didn't have the monies to get the 4th officer, so they hired a security officer. So if Santa Clara's not on duty, they have the security officer doing calls. He's not a law enforcement officer, so anything he sees, pretty much we're getting called. And our guys are doing the investigations to determine if there is a crime that has been committed or not. Hurley usually has ran 3, but even with 3, and I'm not bashing they have their own administration and how they run, but normally in the nighttime hours we're from usually 10 o'clock till 6 in the morning. We're usually covering those municipalities.
And are there hiring issues similar to yours? They're just, that it's difficult to be competitive with, say, like the State Patrol? It's difficult to find people. Are there issues similar?
Yes, ma'am. I know Hurley did a news release on one of their officers that had some issues with certifications, so that's where they lost the 3rd officer in Hurley. But a lot of them are. If you look at the sheriff's office, the majority of us came from the mining district and came to the sheriff's office back in the day. So yes, ma'am, it is with the pay. One thing that I can say is, because we got the 1.5% COLA this last year, we make 5 cents more than what Baird Police does. So trying to bring someone from Bear, I mean, our insurance is a great thing, and that's a very attractive point to where Tri-City doesn't have something like that, but yeah, it's a pay. One thing that I'd like to say that I didn't address, we did do a couple of news medias releases, and just to show the business of what the office has. I lost two detectives, one to the district attorney's office and the other one relocated with his wife. They relocated outside of the state. She works for the Veterans Administration, and so they relocated, but we just sent a press release, it came out over the weekend, but even though we have two investigators and we have a sergeant that's on light duty that used to be in investigations and doing an awesome job, but we did a news release where a male subject was charged with 30 counts of sexual abuse counts on first, second, and third degree of criminal sexual penetration or sexual criminal contact, and another subject that was also charged with 2 counts of sexual offenses as well. Those take time. They take a lot of time, and the investigations, of course, have to be superb. But with the collaborations with us and the sexual assault with SAS and CYFD and stuff, those cases went well.
Well, I think based on your reporting, it sounds like your officers are, I mean, the things that are up, it sounds like it's because they're doing a great job, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, so I can be correct, how many officers are you short?
I am 10 deputies short. We did hire one that's in the academy right now. So we're hoping once he graduates, as a matter of fact, he'll start with the sheriff's office on the 22nd, this coming Monday, but he is still committed to the academy.
So you're still short 10 out of how many?
10 deputies short out of, we're running at a 42 strong.
Okay.
That's certified.
And I also want to thank you for the proposed PACE plan that you presented to the commission, and that'll be coming up during the budget on next month? Okay, thank you.
And I'd just like to say, Manager Webb has been very cooperative, very supportive, and helping us and guidance, not just on this, but on many things. Her and Abby have helped us so much, so thank you all for that.
Thanks. I just want to say one more thing. We look forward to initiating that. That's something that's been long overdue, and I'm speaking for myself, excited to see that go into effect.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair. One more question. So, when you hire someone, like this person that you've just hired that is in the academy now, how long does it take you from the time that you interview to the time they are boots on the ground in a car? What is that time period on the average?
So, for instance, this one subject, male cadet that's in the academy, once he actually graduates from the academy and successfully completes all his testing and stuff, it'll still take another 9 weeks where he'll actually go with the field training officer, and he'll get a touch of what the criminal investigation division, civil division, and he'll be put on patrol. And we have field training officers in the patrol division that will monitor daily activities. So after 9 weeks.
So how long is the academy?
The academy started in January, and they'll graduate this year in June.
So it's a 6-month academy and then 9 weeks of FTO training.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have an estimate of what it costs the sheriff's department to hire and train someone?
I don't, but if you'd like, I can get that for you for next.
I would like to have an estimate, because that's a hugely impactful to your budget, especially if the person then goes on and goes on to the state patrol or something like that. We've invested a great deal of time and effort into someone that is then moving on. I'd like to know what that is.
No, I will, and just in the past, our agency lost 3 deputies and great deputies to New Mexico State Police, and They were great. We lost one of our investigators to the DA's office, which was doing an outstanding job. And, people like that is the ones we want to keep.
Right. Thank you.
One more question, sir. Do you have any kind of MOU or anything with Hurley and Santa Clara?
No, there's no MOU between us and them. Pretty much, we're commissioned, we have jurisdiction Grand County wide. So, there's a lot of times even when they're on duty, they would prefer for the sheriff's office to do the investigations instead of the agency that's on duty there. So we're treating that as what's going on now, especially the shortness that we're directing our deputies to actually go on scene, but to have the agency, the officer that's on duty, to actually go, and we'll guide them if they need any assistance. But as far as MOUs or stuff, no, sir.
Have they ever been approached to, at least reimburse time or money for those hours that they have no police coverage of their own?
They haven't been approached with the past administration. I know I did bring that up to Manager Webb, and we were looking at different MOUs around the state that do charge municipalities for their services. And it's just an early stage of if there's a possibility of doing that, or if there's a municipality that would want to give up their law enforcement, to say it would be the sheriff's office taking over that municipality.
Okay, well, that would put a little bit of money at least for training for you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the sheriff? Thank you, Sheriff. And I guess with the summer months, should be nice and warm, you'll probably be getting busier here soon.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members, county manager, wonderful elected officials, and the public. I would like to start off with, I always thank my employees. They've done a fantastic job, not only on the protest period. Right now, we have within 30 days until May 1st, you can contest your valuation, and make sure you put in detail exactly what you're contesting. However, you can mail it in on the last day, we'll accept it. But at this time, we will accept any exemptions from the head of household, veteran exemptions, or 65-year and older valuation freeze. So you don't have to contest it, just come in, talk to us, bring the proper credentials, and we can pretty much take care of that. Once again, you have within 30 days, okay, to contest your valuation, and that would be May 1st. So, a lot of times, whenever you have personal property like cattle, personal property like manufactured homes, business personal property, we actually charge a 5% if it's rendered late, and that's at the end of February. But at this time, if you render at this time, the 5% will actually be waived. Talk to the state about it, so everything is okay to do that. So right now, we're on the protest period, and once again, like I said, I do thank my employees for keeping the wonderful assessor's office going, because I do have a great staff, and I just I couldn't do any of this thing without them. We just got evaluated by the state of New Mexico Property Tax Division, and I'm actually the only elected officials that get evaluated by the state, and it was quite satisfactory. Thank you very much for allowing me to go to your homes and look at all your wonderful properties. There was a couple of little things that I had to adjust, but you'll see it on your notice evaluation next year. But everything turned out okay. We're actually going to be looking at a lot of the exempt properties here in Grand County. It was just a small question about a couple of them, but that's about it. And one of my goals that they asked me, not only to look at the special method evaluation, but also one of my goals is actually doing a reappraisal, and I'm going to take this upon myself as the assessor, where I'm going to do a lot of the non-residential properties, commercials that is, and do a complete field check on any net new and valuation maintenance. So that's one of my goals here for the year 2019. So you will be seeing me and a couple of appraisers to go out there and work on a lot of the non-residential commercial properties. I'm glad that the evaluation went well. It seems like right before budget time, It's very important that right before budget time, we can actually talk about where we're at and what's going on. My employees have done a great job, and I kind of asked them, and we've been trying to get other employees for the assessor's office. We are down 3 employees. We are one of the main revenue sources here in the county. However, I will ask for just coming to the midpoint for our employees, because we've tried in the past. So we are going to do a couple presentations about valuation maintenance, net new for the new commissioners that are in, so you can see exactly what our process is. So I'm looking forward for the budget time here, that's coming up this next month. We are going to be conducting a reappraisal, and whatever I can do, because that was one of the things that they actually talked about. Once you do that, that's actually the low-hanging fruit here in Grant County, because once again, we're understaffed under the IAAO standards, the International Association of Assessing Officers, and that also is going to be brought up during the budget time. We did attend, matter of fact, our county manager, our esteemed probate judge, we were at the legislative summary down in Las Cruces, and that was very interesting, and I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to speak. Mary Ann was actually acknowledged as being the past chair for past chair for the board of directors for the New Mexico counties, and it was a handful of people. Our esteemed manager was there, and a lot of information came out. I talked to Ken Ortiz. He actually is the Cabinet Secretary of General Services, and talked a little bit about Fort Bayard, and it looks very positive about annexing here in Santa Clara. So anytime you have these individuals there that you're being called, you ask them all a bunch of questions on what's going on. We did talk about full disclosure. We talked about the 2% cap, and we'll probably bring it up on the next legislative session. We will be sending some more appraisers to school for the IAAO, the International Association of Assessing Officers, and it will be in Socorro, and for hoping that my individual could be New Mexico certified appraisers, and that's going to be next on my agenda for my employees. Anything else? Our partial map correction has actually, it's looking very positive. They're doing a lot of progress. And we are meeting once every other Monday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon with the Bohannon Houston, and it's all status quo right now, so there's a lot of progress going on. And not very much going on except the protest period, and hopefully that anybody that qualifies for these exemptions, please come in, and this would be the right time for you guys to come in. And I know our county clerk is probably going to bring this up. There is actually a mail-out ballot, and I do believe that Senate Bill 9 for the silver schools, and I would just like to make this comment. It is not a tax hike. It's a very important issue about Silver High, and once again, it's not a tax hike, so I just thought I'd bring that up. And I do stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, thank you, though.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
So far, we have collected 68.49% of the total 2018 property taxes as of yesterday, and during the month of from March the 20th to April 17th, we had $286,645.08 collected. Year to date, $18,772,110.40 for all taxing authorities that we have collected and processed through our office. Next week on Wednesday in these facilities, the state property tax division will be holding their tax auction for Grant County. We're down to 13 properties at this time. People have come in and paid, brought those current, so that's going ahead. We also have the 10th of May being the deadline for the 2018 second half property tax payments. The ads have started to hit the newspaper, and there'll be 3 more ads that will be processed. So we have the accounts ready for the bonds, for the proceeds from the bonds. We have received the good faith deposit that was submitted by the winning bidder, and it's in place. I did have a discussion after the last meeting with our auditor for last year, and I guess they'll be having an audit for the next fiscal year bidding, and we discussed the issue of the way that item showed up on the last fiscal audit, and we agreed that basically that is kind of a mislabeling of the items, because what's in there is a projected budget for the income for the investments, which for that year was $88,000 that was budgeted. Well, we actually collected $128,000 during that fiscal year. This fiscal year, there's been $100,000 that was budgeted for this fiscal year, and currently, as of yesterday, we've collected $104,158.84. So what they do with the market values versus the book values is misleading when they put it the way they did. So she's going to do whatever it is that they need to do to make sure that that's, the actual, what's actually happening in the investment income is reflected in those reports. So we still have $198,801.40 from the 2014 bond revenues that still remains unexpended. And I was informed that April 30th we'll be receiving the balance of the bond money. So we're ready to process that and keep things going and stand for any questions.
Any questions?
I have one. Is that the revenue you were just talking about, what did you say, 98,000, that still remains unexpended?
Sorry?
You just mentioned that there was a revenue that was unexpended, I think from
2014 bond issues, $198,000.
Okay, is that money that's been budgeted for any reason?
I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Salas, so those, we had 3 projects that were identified with that bond money: the conference center, the courthouse, and Tupasa. And so we are working up, we're in the process of re-roofing the courthouse, which will expend the remaining money in that bond issuance, and it should be spent shortly, so it's already accounted for. It's already encumbered.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
I'll try and use that. I think I can talk a little bit. Can we remove this one? Not working. I'm gonna try it. Testing. It's red. So I didn't think it was working. I apologize. I apologize for being a little late this morning. I was with a citizen. Good morning, everyone. I just want to report that from January 1 through today, we have a total of 42 probate that have been documented in the county clerk's office. Last year, for the entire year, we had 79 dockets. So I've been really busy this year. It's been really great, working still wonderfully with the county clerk's office. I want to thank the Public Works Department. Anytime I need anything, they worked very well with me. County Manager's Office, anything that I need, a question that I have, they've been very, very helpful. I really want to thank them for that. I always like to report on the calls that I receive and the calls returned. Total, I have about 87, and this is just from the last county commission meeting to now. I have not set regular business hours. The probate judge's position is a part-time position, but my at my door, I do have a note that they can contact me, make an appointment. I look at my calendar, they look at their calendar, and basically I'm seeing our citizens when they need to be seen. They don't really have to wait. Friday we're off, but I have citizens that I'm going to be seeing. And why does that happen? Well, a lot of time families are living out of town. For instance, the meetings I have, people are from Tucson, and they need to meet on Friday. So I will be here Friday meeting with citizens. And that's why I have not set regular business hours, because people, unfortunately, they don't run on schedules, and if I'm open just one day or a few hours here and there, I still can't satisfy our citizens, and that's what I feel I need to do, is be there when they need me. So I just want to let the public know, you can contact me on my personal cell phone, 313-4417. I do have business cards at my door. You can get business cards there with all my contacts, email. County Manager's Office has been very kind as to have cards. I know the Assessor's Office has wanted some cards for me. Of course, the Clerk's Office. I can be reached basically at any time. I'm also even receiving some calls from people that are here from out of town, and they call me during the weekend. Marriage licenses, marriages that I've had up to date is 5, but this morning at 11, I will leave early because I am going to perform another marriage ceremony this morning. I have been elected Vice Chairman of the New Mexico Probate Judges Association. I plan to be working very closely this year. This past election year, there was 19 new probate judges that were elected throughout the state. That's a mass number. So the chairman, Mr. Tom Pestek out of Sierra County, we are putting together basically training plan for our new probate judges to utilize our seasoned probate judges to get these new probate judges on task, and any questions that they have. I know they've been wonderful with me. Even the probate judge from Bernalillo County, I call her, she calls me minutes later if I have a quick question. A lot of things unfortunately aren't in the law books, and there's things that happen, and I've been working very well with my fellow probate judges throughout the state. And that's all the report I have, and if you have any questions,
Thank you and congratulations. Do we have any questions?
No, thanks.
No questions. Thank you.
Chairman, Commissioners, I'd just like to mention that the Grant County Clerks is conducting a special all-mail-out election for the Silver School District. We do have sample ballots available in our office, and the school district has also put information on their website, so if anybody has questions there. Ballots were mailed out to all registered voters for the Silver School District on April the 16th, and they do need to be returned back to our office no later than 7 p.m. on May the 14th. If there's any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on, those elected official reps. So moving on to the public input portion of the meeting. During this portion of our meeting, we welcome your suggestions and want to hear your concerns. This is not a question and answer period. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. Any individual who would like to discuss an item in more depth may request to be placed on a future agenda. Request forms are available at the County Manager's Office. And if you could, when you come up, just state your name and do that. Do we have anyone for public input?
No light.
Good morning. I'm Glenn Griffin. I am unpaid, but I am motivated by having 2 of my dogs trapped in the last decade. Wildlife Services, a blank check for Grant County, is a half-time, part-time job that pays at least $82.15 an hour. A very lucrative part-time job, but not valuable to all Grant County taxpayers. Boss Rodolfo Fajardo and contractor Brandon Jones, the APHIS Wildlife Services workers, were on federal layoff for 5 weeks, so no trapping or wildlife services took place even though Grant County is still obligated to pay $7,884 during the layoff. Pricey socialism and a waste of taxpayers' money to benefit APHIS only, a waste of our money when we are so poor. The county will be asked by APHIS to raise its taxpayer share from $25,000 a year to $39,000 a year in the future, like many other counties currently pay. Here's a good opportunity for Commissioner Billings to put his anti-socialism talk into practice. Grant County taxpayers pay $25,000 to benefit the ranchers in killing our wildlife. So cut off the county's payment of $25,000 today before the socialism creeps up to the APHIS requested $39,000. This $39,000 could be used to benefit all taxpayers in Grant County, not just a few. Remember the poor who were having trouble paying their property taxes, and we are short of deputies. The county's 317 ranchers can up their check off from $25,000 a year on their 27,000 cattle to pay for traffic, about 92 cents per head. So far, I've met with Commissioners Ponce and Edwards to find a way out of nearly a century of wildlife services. I need your help to stop this waste of money. Fajardo said he would break out public land from private land in future reports, but he didn't in the last quarterly report. This is important as trapping is no longer allowed in Los Alamos County and in neighboring Arizona. In Colorado, coyote killing contests are now banned on state trust lands and are now outlawed on New Mexico public lands. In New Mexico, half of APHIS's wildlife services take place on public land. So let's cut the $82,000 cost in half, as their areas they can shoot our wildlife are also cut by law in half. Not having the hours, locations, and methods listed as required in the quarterly report amounts to a blank check for the possible inhumane treatment of our animals by this commission. What other businesses and industries do Grant County taxpayers directly subsidize in this way? Wildlife Services is a clear example of a taxpayer-funded fiasco benefiting just a few, and it needs to stop before this wasteful contract renews again in 2 months. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
James Baldwin, county resident. I have two concerns. The first concern is the amount of money that is being spent by Gila Regional Medical Center. The county in the last 20 years has made two, in my opinion, and I stress in my opinion, very, very poor decisions. And that decision was not to sell the hospital so it could be free enterprise. As it is socialized medicine. We turn our television on, we watch different channels throughout the day, and there is not one time that we cannot see a highly paid ad advertising the medical center. It goes from ranching to PA Fire Department to a picture of the Grant County Medical Center. That is not cheap. That costs a lot of money. It also costs several $100s per page in the daily press to advertise. This money could be better spent trying to reduce the overall expenses of the hospital. I had been participating with Dr. Craig Light, who was a pain management specialist, until Dr. Craig Light left the Gila Regional facilities. Now I go to Deming because they have a pain management specialist down there. I would like to see Gila Regional Medical Center, and I'm speaking to you with RS, get a pain management specialist. We need one in town. I go out of town along with quite a few other people that I see down there in the Deming Hospital waiting room. The second point is the detention center. This the building that is behind the existing courthouse is the second detention center that I'm aware of. The first detention center was on the third floor of the courthouse, which still has the steel bars. The courthouse has some things that are of tremendous interest. It has the Van Solen murals, which there are two of them. One is called the Roundup, which was done in 1934. The second is the Chino Mines, done also in 1934. The dimensions of these are 5 foot 9 inches tall by about 12 feet 7 inches wide. This is 5 feet 9 inches right here. It could fit on this wall very nicely. Where the murals are at present, they're out of sight. Oh, they can be seen, but how many people go to the courthouse other than detainees and lawyers and things like this? But if we had them on this wall back here, people could see them readily. They would come, at least the number of people in this room today would see them. The people that come to pay taxes could see them. They would be much, much more accessible than where they are right now. The county also has on the courthouse something that is, to me, great importance, and that is plaques. On the front of the courthouse steps, on the north wall of the courthouse steps, there is a plaque dated 1930 commemorating the construction of the courthouse. There was, and I stress was, on the south steps looking down Broadway, another plaque, brass plaque, and that plaque has been removed. It was not done gracefully because the concrete, the brickwork that the plaque was embedded in is pretty well beat up. So somebody could have done it out of vandalism. It could have been, but it was not done necessarily by a careful plaque remover. There are currently 2 plaques in the courthouse. There's a large plaque in front, dated 1930, then there's a smaller plaque on the back side. Below, on the bottom step of the courthouse, there's something that the city used to, and I stress used to have, and that is, it's a benchmark.
You have 30 seconds, sir.
Huh?
You have 30 seconds.
30 seconds, yeah.
A benchmark. The city used to have one, and the city lost its benchmark. Your benchmark has an elevation of 5,937.95 feet. It's very accurate. It's done by triangulation, not by regular survey. Thank you for your consideration and preserve these things.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else for public speaking? Public input? Mr. Toledo.
Thank you very much. I'm here as Ron Toledo, not only a softball player, but also a senior Olympic qualifier, national, and coach from Little League to Pony League and soccer and so on. I just want to bring up the situation about what's happening in Baton Park. We do play on a regular basis softball. We've had major tournaments there at the Baton Park. After Tuesday, when they had the work session on how much it's going to cost for them to actually bring it up to par, I think that's great, that's wonderful, that's fantastic. I think we owe to the kids that we do need to come up with the resources to actually bring it up to par. I think the mining district deserves it, they use it, they utilize it. We actually fight with the young ones because who's going to get the field? It's 35 acres of property. It is a wonderful investment. I think we need to add more investment to the park itself. And not only that, there's actually acreage behind Baton Park. We also have, the room for the Colburn Silver Consolidated School for cross country, the best track in the state. And I think we need to really look deep into what we need to come up with resources to get Baton up to par. I think it's really important. And not only that, I think we owe it to our future kids because they just love it more than anything else because I'm always competing with them and they win more times than expected. But I just would like to say, please, let's really look really deep on how we can come up with the resources, do whatever we can. Oh, by the way, there's actually a $7.6 million bond that they're going to be talking about sometime today. Maybe a little bit of money can be thrown over to Baton Park. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Morales?
Good morning. Thanks for letting me speak here. I'm Samuel Morales, Grant County resident forever. I'm 67 years old, so that's a long time. And doesn't make any difference here, but registered Democrat since 1972. Okay. My request is pretty simple. This is a county commission, and county clerk is present. No, we have a lot of discussion and thought regarding upcoming elections, and here locally, nationally, statewide. And the ability to maintain those elections is free elections, as prescribed under the Constitution of the United States. A lot of groups have thought of different ways to make sure that only registered voters can vote. We're given the perfect solution at the Democratic Convention Convention last month. I ran for chairman. Thank God I didn't get it. The right guy got it, so no issue there. But we were given the perfect solution to maintaining good, sound, fair elections. We were required to provide identification before we were allowed to vote. This is a Democratic Party. It's a large portion of this county. I would ask that the county and the county clerk consider asking for the same thing in our general elections this coming year, and all elections going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public input? Okay, thank you. So moving on to the next item, approval of minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the March 19th work session minutes, March 21st regular meeting minutes, and April 8th special meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Edwards, second by Commissioner Billings. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And motion carries. Thank you. Next item is the financial report, consideration of April 10, 2019 expenditure report.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the April 10th, 2019 expenditure report.
Second that motion.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Edwards, second by Commissioner Brown. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Okay, so moving on to new business, the consideration of proclamation declaring April 2019 as Fair Housing Month.
Commissioners of the Board. Whereas fair and equal housing is a right guaranteed to all Americans, and whereas the principle of fair and equal housing is not only a national law and policy, but a fundamental human entitlement, and whereas people not to be denied housing because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, handicap, or family status, and whereas the Grant County Board of Commissioners acknowledges the importance of assuring fair and equal treatment to all citizens, and whereas the Grant County Board of Commissioners, the Southwest New Mexico Council of Governments, and the Silver City Regional Association of Realtors will supply fair housing information to the public, and the county will display a fair housing proclamation at the Grant County Administration Building. And whereas the Grant County Board of Commissioners, the Southwest New Mexico Council of Governments, and the Silver City Regional Association of Realtors is committed to highlighting the 51st anniversary of the Fair Housing Law, title of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, by continuing to address discrimination in our community to support programs that will educate the public about the right to equal housing opportunities and to plan partnership efforts with organizations to help assure every American of their right to fair housing. And whereas the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics commits all realtors to providing equal professional services without discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, family status, handicap, sexual orientation, gender identity, and national origin. Now therefore, the Grant County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim the month of April 2019 as Fair Housing Month and urge all citizens to participate in appropriate activities to commemorate this event.
Thank you. Okay, I make a motion to, I'm lost here. Make a motion to, make, declaring, Fair Housing Month for the April 2019 year.
Second that motion.
Second by Commissioner Brown. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Ms. Clark, could you come on up?
Do you want to say anything? Did she speak?
I'll do it after.
Okay, on the count of three, everybody say cheese. 1, 2, 3.
Look at me. Now, cheese or here, or kiss or her. How are you doing?
Okay, Ms. Clark, would you like to say a few words?
I would, thank you. It's an honor to be here. We meet annually for this proclamation. I want to thank the Southwest Council of Governments, Priscilla Lucero, and Michelle Larash, Grant County Planning. Today we're honoring, this month, we're honoring the 51st anniversary of the Fair Housing Act. The 1968 Act prohibited discrimination based on race, religion, and national origin. It was expanded in 1974 to include gender, and was expanded again in 1988 to protect people with disabilities and families and children. The Silver City Regional Association of Realtors, along with State Representative Rebecca Dow in Grant County, are hosting a housing expo next week on Thursday, the 20th. I'm getting my dates mixed up because I've got so many things going on. The 25th. So Thursday the 25th from 4:30 to 6:30 at the Conference Center. We will be having a housing expo, and we'll be handing out fair housing information. Grant County has a booth at the expo. The Realtors Association has a booth, and we will be doing that. We also have other vendors. We have insurance companies, title companies, banks, Southwest Council of Governments, MFA. So it'll be a one-stop shop for people in Grant County who are interested in getting housing-related information. Sometimes it's a little intimidating if you're a first-time home buyer to walk into a bank and seek mortgage information, or to walk into a real estate office and seek housing information. So if you do it in a more informal setting, such as an expo, hopefully it's a little bit more welcoming. So we just want to invite the public to come to our expo next Thursday from 4:30 to 6:30 at the Conference Center. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next item of the agenda is consideration of proclamation declaring May 11th, 2019 as the 6th ever Give Gladly, Give Local Day.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners of the Board. Whereas the County of Grand is blessed by nonprofit organizations which provide invaluable services to our community, and whereas Give Grantley, Give Local Day, May 11, 2019, is the 6th community-wide giving event hosted by the Grant County Community Foundation online at www.grantcountycommunityfoundation.org and www.givegrantley.org. And whereas there are 51 registered participants, and whereas Give Grantley, Give Local Day shall grow the spirit of giving and raise as much money as possible for the nonprofits in the Grant County area. And whereas through the Grant County Community Foundation and its partner, the Southwest New Mexico Nonprofit Coalition, Give Grantley, Give Local Day shall inspire the public to support our nonprofit organizations on this one day, May 11, 2019. Now therefore, the Grant County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim May 11, 2019 as the 6th ever Give Grantley, Give Local Day. And be it further proclaimed that for all citizens, it is the official day of providing financial support for all of the causes that continue to move our county forward.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion declaring May 11, 2019 as the 6th ever Give Grantley, Give Local Day.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Commissioner Salas. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Is there anyone here? There we go.
Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Over here.
On behalf of the Grant County Community Foundation and the Southwest New Mexico Nonprofit Coalition, we appreciate your support and hope you join us on May 11th. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item, consideration of a proclamation proclaiming May 6th through May 10th, 2019 as National Correctional Officers and Employees Week.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners of the Board. Whereas National Correctional Officers and Employees Week, held during the first full week in May, is an annual nationwide commemoration of correctional officers and personnel who work in jails, prisons, and community corrections throughout the county. And whereas President Ronald Reagan issued Proclamation 5187 in 1984, recognizing National Correctional Officers Week for the first time that year, noting that ever-expanding multidisciplinary responsibilities of correctional officers. And whereas in 1996, Congress changed the name to National Correctional Officers and Employees Week. The week's current name in order to recognize the crucial work done by the civilian corrections employees and volunteers. And whereas correctional officers, employees, and volunteers in the Grant County serve the county's mission of safe and secure communities every day by supervising offenders and providing services for the return as law-abiding citizens. And whereas officers at the Grant County Detention Center are not guards, they are diverse, dedicated, and professional staff, called upon to simultaneously fill custodial, supervisory, and counseling roles. And whereas across Grant County and across the country, correction workers in all fields risk their lives daily to ensure the protection that many take for granted. Now therefore, the Grant County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim May 6, 2019 through May 10th as National Correctional Officers and Employees Week.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we proclaim May 6th through May 10th, 2019 as National Correctional Officers and Employees Week.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Edwards, second by Commissioner Billings. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Is there anyone here from the detention center? Okay.
We can catch him later if he comes.
Yeah, we can do that. And thank you.
Or we can take it out to him.
That's probably waiting for us.
He is. So, okay, thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Edwards. Next item on the agenda is Ranger District project updates.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So if I have a handout, do I just hand it out?
Sure.
Okay.
Close to death.
I only have 12, so I'll
Thank you.
keep swinging around as far as I can make them go. Or you this way.
Two left. You. Oh, would you like, okay, Thank you, Commission, and staff and elected officials for giving us a few moments this morning to do an update about what's going on the Silver City Ranger District. My name is Beth Eiley. I was recently appointed to this job in November of last year. My previous duty station was on the Helena Lewis and Clark in Montana. I was a deputy district ranger in the bustling metropolis of Nyhard, population 62 or something like that. Anyway, I'm originally from Ohio, from northeastern Ohio, a steel town called Youngstown. So anyway, and I have happily and luckily found myself working for the Forest Service for quite some time. It's a great gig, as I've explained to other folks. What I would like to do before I get into our topics is also introduce a new employee to the Ranger District. His name is Larry Smith. So I asked him to just come up and introduce himself.
Good morning, honored commissioners. My name is Larry Smith. I'm a 3-day resident of Grant County, and I come to you with 30 years of experience in public service in law enforcement, firefighting, EMS, and public speaking. I look very forward to being a liaison between the Forest Service and your office. I will be the new prevention and education technician for the Silver City District.
Welcome.
Thanks, Larry. I wanted him to come because he will be interfacing with the BFDs and with Randy and his folks, and so he's going to be kind of a community face. So, and he replaces a gal who went to Las Vegas. She and her husband took a job in Las Vegas. Her name is Jody Malozzi. I don't know if any of you had met Jody. Okay, so first of all, I want to thank your folks for providing for good working relationships with the Silver City Ranger District and my folks. We've had quite a slew of meetings. That was kind of the joke last week. Charlene was like, I'm just continuing to meet with the Forest Service. Let's hope we're transitioning out of the meeting season into the do-it season. So from your fire folks to your planning shop to your sheriff's folks, we have a good working rapport, so thank you. This time of the year for us is when our new temporary employees start to show up. We spend a lot of time in training. We spend a lot of time in fire preparedness dialogues and discussions, as well as training those folks who come on. We are preparing for our field seasons, and we're generally trying to manage and deal with the events and the activities that the public brings, as well as on our facilities and the campgrounds and the picnic areas. So this is a activity ramp up time for us. One recent thing that our forest leadership team made a decision on, which I think is really exciting to bring some emphasis to the area's interest in trails, is the forest is looking at bringing on professional full-time employees on trails that would be housed in Silver City to serve the whole forest. We have had issues with getting trails folks that will return year after year. The work is not easy. There's a lot of technical things to it. Their jobs have, between the public interface, the technical skills, the rules of working in wilderness and non-wilderness, we have motorized trails, non-motorized trails. We made a decision to put some investment into trails employees, so I look forward to being able to bring those folks in as we get them hired and introduce them. So anyway, however, they are not just ours. They will serve the Gila Forest, which will require them to travel similar to our road crew, who is on the road to do the work of the whole forest. So just I did not try and dive deep on this. This was just, to me, was an introduction and to engage in information and dialogue with you folks and find out how we can continue to work together. One of the things that we have recently met on was what we call our landscape risk assessments, which are our fire preparedness and planning meetings, where we are trying to get a sense for where our resources issues are in interface with where people live. We had some very overview exercises of if we had a fire here, if we had a fire there, how do we transition, who's going to work on it, who is responsible for what roles, and that was a positive exercise in the backdrop of Silver City. We do live in a fire-prone landscape here. We also have had folks go into VFDs and trying to embellish our relationships with those folks, as well as introduce, so they see new faces and get to know who we might be working with if we have a fire that a VFD is the first to respond to, and they generally are. If it's anywhere on the periphery of the forest, they're oftentimes the first ones there, and it helps for these folks in fire to get to know each other. So, as well as them doing good work in living with fire, working with landowners, we're absolutely supportive of that. And we also appreciate Randy set up a really nice emergency responders day out in the front of the Grant County Convention Center with the ladders were up, and I don't know, just scream kids, ooh, we gotta go see that. So anyway, we support their efforts just like in the sheriff's office. They are trying for volunteers at the VFDs and for firefighters. So that's a way for all of us to kind of help each other. I want to transition to trails coordination work that we have been doing with the county, city, and a variety of organizations. There's a lot of hands in the trails pot, and it's needed. It's not always understood who's working on what, and we're getting a little better feel for that with some coordination meetings that between the county and these trails groups. So to me, that's what the exciting part is. People want to work on trails, and they want the trail systems in better shape, and I absolutely agree with them. I know that we're also, as part of that, trying to do planning activities. You can't help but see the connections between the urban areas and the forest. It's pretty close here. Not a lot of cities have that juxtaposition of public lands with really good trails so close to home. So for us to continue to be at the table when those conversations are going on and trying to figure out where we can partner up and work together on those, that's a good thing, and a lot of that's your planning shop taking the lead on, and the cities as well. So a little, and I'll put in a little plug for the Gila Landscape Collaborative. These are folks that kind of work under the radar, and it's Martha Cooper is our coordinator, and she has yarded up different agencies as well as private business owners to continue to work on the increasing what we call, the Forest Service called pace and scale of restoration activities in the Forest Service right now. Timber and fuels projects are high priority, but it takes all of us working together to do those. And so right now there's 3 CFRP projects that are ongoing, and Grant County Soil and Water Conservation District proposed another CFRP in the boroughs. So that project will be evaluated in June, it sounds like, and hopefully we get funded to do that work. And it's thinning work that would also provide for some firewood gathering. The other thing these collaboratives and working groups do is help increase communications between all of us. Because I would tell you, we never totally stay on script. We talk about whatever is going on the side or in the background before or after the meetings. So that's a good way for people like me, relatively new, to get to know who wants to work on what and where the emphases of this community are. So it's a good thing. Then I have a couple of specific projects, and then I guess at any point if you want to just interject and ask questions, you're welcome to. The Grant County shooting range permit has been I think it's kind of been a long drawn out, kind of a difficult permit to walk through, but I think we're getting really close. And it has to do with, the end of the road, insurance and things like that. So we appreciate the patience of Misha and Charlene to try and get that permit to, I think it's going to be a 30-year permit now, which then we don't have to do this again. And trust me, those shooting range permits, you don't want them expiring anytime soon. So, okay, Fort Bayard, we're doing some work to get a handle on the infrastructure of the Fort Bayard, the Forest Service portion of it. What's the state of our improvements out there? What are the sum total of the improvements out there, so that we can eventually walk into a planning effort for recreation out of Fort Bayard. It's a well-loved place. I've spent a little bit of time out there myself, and so we have to continue to keep an eye on how that area is getting developed and the users and the potential for conflicts. We can't ignore it. There's just a lot of use out there. Cameron Creek is a prescribed burn. It is planned for this spring. It is actually in the northern part of the Fort Bayard area on the west side of Cameron Creek. This is the second burn up there. I believe the first one, which was east of Cameron Creek, was about 3 years ago, maybe 4. We're going to have a public meeting on April 24th at the Santa Clara Armory to walk through, describe what the burn is, what we're trying to achieve, and then we're going to have like an open house format for other Forest Service projects. I have some flyers for that, and if we have a couple places we can post these around the building here, because lots of folks come through this office area. Jaybird is another prescribed burn. It's on the north side of Signal Peak. That one, we tried to do it this past fall, and as you guys know, it got kind of wet and cool early, and so we didn't have the great conditions. So we're hoping we have them for this year. So it's still on the books. Another prescribed burn that we may be doing is over in the boroughs. If the Cameron Creek burn, if we don't get it the right prescription and conditions, we may be looking at a fallback burn in the sawmill area over in the boroughs. They're both about 900 acres. The Royal John Mine cleanup project is going on as we speak. I'll put in a plug for the businesses on the lower end of the Royal John Road. The road is not closed until you get to the forest boundary. So you can go 7 miles up the Royal John Road. And the folks at the winery, and there's a lady that does pottery down in the first half mile of the road, and they're like, oh, it's not closed. It is not. The road is a county road, so technically it's probably just called barricaded, and that's because they're running haul trucks on that road. There is no room for even a bicycle when those trucks are on the road. So it's a safety concern to have that road open. The project shuts down every Saturday night at 5, and so the road is open on Saturday nights from 6 until Sunday night at 9 p.m. So that's 27 hours of turkey hunting that can happen. So, because all the equipment's off the road and they are at their campsite. Let's see, the Wagon Wheel area has an ongoing planning project to work towards a contract to get the thinning work done in and around that piece of private property. We're looking at thinning the border, and some of the private landowners have done their own work, and the state's working with them on that, as well as the monastery. So we hope to get that project in contract, if not late this fiscal year, at the beginning of our next one. Our fiscal year is September 30th. This past winter, we made an adjustment to the Big Burrows travel plan on the ATV trails to provide for wider than ATV type vehicles on a segment of the trails in the Big Burrows, most of them. That was a public involvement effort that we started last summer, and I have maps that show the trail system that is now open to vehicles greater than 50 inches. And I can give those to Misha because we are dialoguing on trail things on a regular basis. We are at this moment trying to get all the stickers purchased so when more Carsonites to get the signs done out there. The signs are not great in the boroughs. So anyway, so the map is an addendum to our emblem, and it's an enforceable tool is what I understand. So, and then the last thing I had is we have met with almost all of our livestock permit holders in the last, most of them were before Christmas, and a lot of improvement work being proposed, and we're trying to get materials and get the tank improvements and the clean outs in the queue to continue with administration of those livestock allotments and keep them up. So that's actually a fair amount of work. We got a little extra money this year, bought more fence materials. So exciting. so anyway, that was what I had to basically give a download on. My question is this helpful, or would having a working session where we could dive deeper into topics be something that would be beneficial to the commission? Some of our project stuff, like your work, is more than just a glossy overview. So,
Mr. Chair, I found this very helpful. Thank you. And actually it jogged my memory on 2 or 3 things that I could, if I wanted more information, I could contact you and get that. I really appreciate it. In the interest of time, I won't thank you for several things on here. I'll give you a call later. But
okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just to answer your last question, I agree. It's very helpful. And I would say we could do both as appropriate, right? The deeper dive presumably wouldn't apply to a lot of this, but we could identify things we felt we needed something deeper on, or you could, and I appreciate that invitation. I think there are issues like that. So I would say both.
Okay.
I agree with that.
I do too. And the deeper dive could happen at a work session, and it could be at your instigation or ours.
Or it could happen in the convention center, in the public, it could be a special meeting.
Okay.
And I had a specific question. You mentioned the trails coordination work, and that prompted my memory that at a Grant County Trails Group meeting earlier this month, you mentioned hiring some folks locally, and then I forgot to follow up with you. What is the deadline for people who are interested in that position to contact you?
Okay, so talking about the federal hiring process is a deep dive.
Let's not get into the details.
Here is what I would tell you is that we do 2 processes. One, we outreach. We try to find out who the candidate pool is, We do it through email, through a web area in USA Jobs. USA Jobs is the federal hiring portal. That's where all federal hiring on the non-military side goes. And so that's a place where we have, they're called employment outreaches. And so for people, that's how a lot of people find out about federal jobs, not just the Forest Service. So then when we actually get to a vacancy announcement, meaning the job is advertised, it has a number, and you apply to that number in USA Jobs. So we use whoever responded during the outreach, and we will directly let them know a vacancy is open. I can't predict when the vacancy will be open for the first job, which is the trail crew leader, and that one is it's called a grade 6-7, and it's a forestry tech with an emphasis in trails. If that is something that you all would want to be aware of, what I can tell you is I can email you the outreach notice. We've gotten a ton of response from that all over the country. People are excited about the idea of having a focused trails organization in the Forest Service, because that's something we've been losing them. So I can email the outreach to the commission and anybody else who's interested.
That would be great.
Okay. And if you respond, I'll send you an email that the job is open. But I can also we can just let you know when the vacancy comes out. It might be in the next month.
Okay.
Really hard to tell.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I just want to make a comment that I really, really appreciate that you guys are responding to the community interest in trails, and it's really exciting that you're going to hire a trail crew here. Thank you very much.
I'll pass that on to Adam and Krista Osborne, who you know has been working in the background hard on this topic. Yeah, I will do that.
Thanks very much.
You seem like that. You know, I just would like to tell you thank you, and Mr. Smith, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we good?
We're good.
All right, I'll be back.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Carrillo is here. Can we go back to that proclamation? Commissioner Edwards, could you please do that?
You guys ready? 1, 2, 3.
Now.
You were saying?
We'll see you in a little bit.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, I'd just like to say a few words. First of all, accept my apologies for the delay. And I want to thank you truly for recognizing the corrections officers of the Grant County Detention Center and recognizing them through this proclamation of the National Corrections Appreciation Week. They have a tough job, and I thank you all very much, and I know they appreciate it very much also. So thank you for this.
Thank you. Thanks for all the work. I'm going to go ahead and skip agenda mine for right now. She's on the way. Okay. And moving on, Jay, presentation of final term for certificates.
Does it make sense to do J with I, or? Yeah, you were.
Louis is here to go over his portion of that, and will be part of what Lily speaks to when she arrives.
Yeah, I think it's up to the board whether they want to wait till she arrives and sort of do it as all as one package. That would be fine as well, or I'm prepared to go now.
Do it all in one package?
Yeah, then it brings it
Maybe so.
on that topic.
Thanks.
The next item says too.
Okay, so then we'll move on to item K. Consideration and adoption of written procedure for ongoing tax compliance regarding the county bond issue.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the written procedures for ongoing tax compliance regarding county bond issues.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Edwards, second by Commissioner Salas. Any discussion?
Is this nothing that we need to hear from Louis about? It is also. Yeah.
Is it part of the thing too?
Oh, it's
Yeah,
part of
I would like to,
all three of those things at once? Oops.
Okay, so we'll hold off on, I guess we can keep that
I'll
motion and
hold on to that thought.
we'll hold on to that motion.
technically have to withdraw it so we can move to something else.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I will withdraw my motion to approve written procedures for ongoing tax compliance pending the arrival of Lily.
Thank you.
We have a second.
You mean a withdrawal of the second?
Withdrawal the second for the withdrawal of the second.
I think that was down withdrawal.
Okay, second by Commissioner Salas. Any discussion? All those in favor?
There's no motion anymore. She made a motion and she withdrew the motion.
So we'll have
Yeah, so we don't need to have a...
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to next item on the agenda is consideration of appointment of one community member to the Tucasa Advisory Board.
Mr. Chair, I move that we appoint Michael Carrillo to the Tucasa Advisory Board.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion, and a second by Commissioner Brown. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Then we have the next item on the agenda, appointment of complete count committee members.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. So I thought that I might have a little more update on some names before today, but I do not. So currently, the list is Hurley is Mayor Stevens. For Baird is, also Lori Ortiz. She'll be an alternate for Hurley. For Baird is Christy Ortiz. For Santa Clara is Sheila Hudman. Silver City, Jamie Embeck. Southwestern New Mexico Council of Governments is Priscilla Lucero. For Silver Schools is Curtis Club. Covey Schools, Mr. Robert Mendoza. All those schools is Wayne Sherwood. Grant County Community Foundation, we've got Barrett Brewer. The Lions Club, Jeremiah Garcia. Silver City Radio, Sabrina Peck. GRMC is Taffy Arias, and then we do need to determine which one of the commissioners is going to be on this committee. The rest of the ones that we invited, we did not get an answer from. They can be added later. Like I said, this is a working group, so we can add or remove people as we see fit. So I guess all I'm asking is that through your discussion, we determine which commissioner is willing to be on the committee. Based on our resolution, we must have one.
Tell us about the time commitment again, really quickly.
The time commitment is going to vary. It's going to be until April of 2020, whatever that date was on April. That's the census day. But we anticipate a couple hours a month. And then if you get assigned to a subcommittee, that could require more time allocation.
Should we draw straws?
Well, I have
somebody interested.
I have a rationale for you. And you could obviously, say whether you're inclined or not. But when we heard the presentation earlier, it seemed like the bulk of the role of this person was to identify ways to get more members of the county, more residents of the county participating, and that the most difficult areas were the most rural areas, and that made me think a perfect job for the person who represents District 4, that being by far the most rural of our areas.
Okay, yeah, I'd be willing to do that, under that rationale, yeah.
That would be awesome.
What happened to the lady that I found you from had cheated it?
You're right, I have the cheetah, Karen Stevens.
Okay.
I'm sorry, she's on the list, I just didn't read it off.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we appoint Commissioner Billings to the Complete Count Committee.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Edwards, second by Commissioner Brown. Any discussion?
Would this be an appropriate time to offer myself up as an alternative?
That'd be great. Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move that we officially appoint as an alternate member to the Complete Count Committee, Commissioner Edwards.
I'll second that. So we have two motions.
So we have
two motions on the floor.
We do, I should not have done that.
That's okay. So let's go to the first motion. First motion is Commissioner Billings being placed on the board. I don't remember who made the motion or seconded it. Commissioner Edwards?
I seconded it. I made the motion.
I seconded it.
Okay, Commissioner Brown made the motion and Commissioner Edwards seconded it.
Other way around.
Or the other way around. Commissioner Edwards made the motion, Commissioner Brown seconded the motion. Any discussion on the first motion?
Just my appreciation for Commissioner Billings being willing to do it. Me too.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries. Now to the second motion, which was...
It was made by myself.
Commissioner Brown made the motion, seconded by Commissioner Billings. Any discussion?
Thank you for being willing to do that.
I'd like to thank all of you. Yes. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll get the list rewritten up and over to Bernadette.
The next item on the agenda is consideration of out-of-state travel for Detective Adam Mariano and Sergeant Marco Yost to attend a certified voice stress analysis training June 17th through the 21st of 2019 in Boulder, Colorado.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve this travel.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Billings, second by Commissioner Edwards. Any discussion?
I have one question. It just seems to me, I think that you brought the issue up the other day, that why should this even be brought if it's in I question why we should have to make a motion on this when they approve it if it's within the purview of their budget.
Well, yeah, and that was one of my concerns, being that, our elected officials, department heads have budgets in place to send their people to training, but I believe we have an ordinance that says that this is what we have to do. So we have discussed revisiting this in our next work session and next regular meeting to leave that up to the elected officials, department heads, and county manager to make these decisions. So that will be brought up in what month are we? April, May? In May.
Yeah, we're going to fix that.
Good idea. We're all on the same page.
Yes. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration of volunteer firefighting department protection fund application for the fiscal year of 2020.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the volunteer firefighter department. That one.
Your motion for all 10 of the applications, is
Yes,
that
I am.
correct?
Yes, I am.
I'll second that motion. We approve these VFD Fire Protection Fund applications, all 10 of them.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Edwards, second by Commissioner Brown to approve all 10. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a consideration of the evening commission meetings.
Mr. Chair, I move we table consideration of evening meetings consistent with our discussion at the work meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Brown, second by Commissioner Edwards. Any discussion?
So I have a question about this. So what we would then do if we're going to go to 2 meetings per month, and that would be on the May agenda as an item, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, yes, because we would have to amend the Open Meetings Act resolution, and the conversation with Abby, we thought that would be the best mechanism, is to put in front of you a revised Open Meetings Act going to the 2 meetings per month, and you can vote on that particular item, and then it would be done.
And then we could put this on at whatever month we decide in the future we want to reopen that discussion, correct?
Okay. Any further discussion?
One question. Did we decide about any evening meetings?
What occurred, I was on the phone, but that discussion was to begin, the conclusion of that discussion in the work session was we thought we would begin by having 2 regular meetings and 2 work sessions each month, and after seeing how that goes, then talk about perhaps moving a pair of those to evening.
Okay.
So we have a motion. Any further discussion? Okay, so we have a motion. Any further discussion now? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration regarding the agenda process of Board of County Commissioners meetings. And I brought this up in the work session, so my idea would be, we'll make it in the motion if here in a minute, but it would be that the county manager send an email to county commissioners on anything that's going to be added to the agenda, so it can be, and that way gives us an idea it's going to come up in Novus. And then from there, no additional additions to the agenda after 5 p.m. on Wednesday prior to the regular meetings. I don't know why I did this, I'm not going to repeat it. And the exceptions would be any Grant County agreements and contracts. So I guess my motion would be
all that.
So let me just go. The motion would be that an email be sent by the county manager to all county commissioners anytime an item is going to be added to the agenda, and that way we're aware that it will be uploaded to Novus. That no additions to the agenda will take place after 5 p.m. on the Wednesday prior to the work session and the regular meeting, and with the exception of Grant County agreements and contracts.
I have a clarification. So are we saying that is from the county manager or her staff, so it could come from Bernadette?
Well, we can add county manager or staff. Make it easier for you. Yeah. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, instead of just one of the 2 contracts, sometimes we have situations for applications, for funding, maybe
Regular county business?
time-sensitive regular county business.
Yeah,
I just think of other things.
right. I mean, I want to get it. You're right. So I guess amending that last part to time-sensitive county business, right?
Time-sensitive, regular county business. I think the idea was, any of us might consider something we want to be county business. Yeah. But it's not regular county business.
Time-sensitive, regular county business.
I'll second that motion.
Now, I have a clarifying question. What is this? Is this a resolution? Is this going to be built into some annual procedures that I'm not that familiar with? Where does this go?
We talked about that.
We didn't talk about
Just sort of
that.
setting a rule. It depends on what you all would like.
Isn't it really about the fact that we want to sort of make a commitment to the idea that we're going to do this in a timely manner, and that it's going to apply to regular business?
I have no problem with the concept at all. It's a good concept. I'm just trying to envision where it goes. And maybe we just,
County Commissioner handbook.
maybe just get, right.
Maybe it could be in a memo to the staff or the officials or something.
And a lot of that is, you're right, it's because of the information, and then sometimes that making sure that all the county commissioners have the information when something is placed on the agenda, so preparation can be made and there's no surprise. And the other part to this is, our agenda and time frame. That was my intent with this.
Yeah, and another possibility is we add a paragraph to the Open Meetings Act resolution, which is where I would look for many things regarding how we conduct our meetings. How would you feel about that?
I think that's a great idea.
So we could do that then when we consider these other changes.
So you're okay to do that in May then, to officially put it in the Open Meetings Act resolution?
Yes, I would be okay.
So then I think what you would do is withdraw that motion, and then make a motion to table it to be added to the Open Meetings Act, right?
Let's do that.
Okay, I would consider that, yeah, more permanent, yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to withdraw my motion and table it, make a motion to table it to the May.
I'll withdraw my second.
And I'll second the motion to table.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll take a look at Robert's rules. As
Wow.
long as you all understand what's happening.
Yeah, I think we
I think we do. I'm a little confused now, but we're good.
I have a question though, loosely associated. Is there any possibility of us seeing Novus from home? Because Novus is usually,
Yeah, you can do it.
more expanded version.
Yeah, that's possible.
It is
You can log in from
possible. You are able to log in from anywhere, and if you want to stop by, I know Bernadette reached out to you, and just, you're more than welcome to come by anytime, and we can go through it on this. You can do it from your home computer, you can do it from your phone, if you have a tablet, and we can walk you through the process, and maybe get it to where it's easier for you to log on, so we'd be happy to do that for you.
And don't feel bad about calling Bernadette every month and re-asking her how to log in, because that's what I do.
For at least the first 3 months.
I would like, since we're on this topic, you mentioned from your phone. It's not quite true. A tablet, no problem. The phone, they haven't figured out yet. And it's miserable formatting on my phone.
I guess I'm looking at the other version, but I've done it on my version.
Yeah, I try regularly, and I try tablet version, and I try hybrid version. And I can't see the whole page, and sometimes the text actually overlaps itself, and I can't read the text. So it's not perfect on the phone.
I guess it's my version. My apologies.
No problem. I've been meaning to complain about that for some time.
Because you do everything on your phone.
I try to do everything on my phone.
So, this is why I appreciate the clerk's office so much. Where are we at?
We did a motion you withdrew, and you did a motion to table, and Commissioner Edwards seconded. That's where we're at.
Okay, so we're at that discussion there, right?
Yes.
Any further discussion on it? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. So, Balea? So we can move back up to item I, that's okay, and review the Joe bond sales.
Thank you so much for bearing with me with normal timing. I was driving home from Midland, and I had no idea how bad the traffic was going to be. So I made it in one piece. So
So I'm just going to give a bit of a summary of how the pricing went for the GEO bonds that we sold on April 4th, and just give a little bit of color about what was going on in the market and what you can expect as next steps. So it turns out that the timing of the pricing was very fortuitous. We did really, really well. If you recall, back at the end of March, there was some adverse guidance that came out from the Fed, and there were a lot of fears about negative or not so favorable projections in GDP and economic growth. So there was a lot of risk-off sentiment in the market, and a lot of dollars that were flooding into municipals, chasing after very few deals. So that translated into a lot of downward pressure on yields. So we had 5 bidders. We had 7 at the start, and then 5 bidders that ended up submitting a final bid. All of them were within about 19 or 20 basis points of each other. The final true interest cost that we received was at 2.36%. So this is quite a bit below what we were projecting when we kind of, started going down this road at the, mid to late last year. So again, the county did very favorably. The first couple of pages that you have in front of you, the first page is just the total debt service, and if you'll notice, we've front-loaded the debt service quite a bit, so you're retiring about $1.2 million of principal in each of those first 2 maturities, and the reason for that is to pay out the current balance that's in the debt service fund and guard against any fluctuations in the tax rate. So the debt service has been sized to maintain the current tax rate so that you can keep your promise of no impact to tax rates for the constituents. The second page just shows a pricing summary so that you can see what coupons and yields were received at every level of the maturity. The bonds will be callable. The maturities on and after 9/1/2030 will be callable starting 2029. But again, those are pretty low coupons in that final in the final stretch of those bonds. So I don't know that they'll we'll see what the market looks like at that point, but there may not be much incentive to restructure or refund. The next page just shows aggregate debt service, so it looks at your existing debt service, the 2019 bonds, and your current obligations, and this is what we use to size for tax impact. And again, we'll work with DFA come August, September to make sure that we get the tax impact that we were anticipating. The next page looks at sources and uses. So the bonds were sized for a total project fund of $8 million, and we generated premium in order to cover all the costs of issuance and the underwriter's discount. So cost of issuance, our advisory fee, bond counsel fee, rating fees, doc prep, the selling fee for the platform, all of that stuff is in here so it doesn't come out of your total bond proceeds. So we were able to resize and bring down the par amount so that you're not actually carrying a full $8 million worth of bonds because we sold them at a premium. And then, so the next page, just to give you a little bit of color as far as where the market was and is and how well you guys did in the pricing process. So the jagged gray line in the middle is just the 15-year index of GEO bonds, just total in the market. And so, and then the straight across line that's current GEO BBI, that's just like the current rate as of the day of pricing on April 4th. So that's kind of what current GEOs were pricing at, but because of the liquidity in the market and the market conditions, that price actually got bought down to a true interest cost of 2.36. So again, you did very, very well considering what the norms were or projected to be in the market that day. The next page, I'm not going to really go over too much. This is just a little bit of market commentary so you can see how many deals were in the market, what conditions were fueling investor activity and sentiment in the market. So, issues with tariffs and trade with China, economic data out of China, like all of that stuff that kind of figures into how investors were performing. And on the statistics side, on the right-hand side of the page, you can see week over week whether there was a change. So the following week, like right after we priced, and also continuing into this last couple of weeks in April, bond yields started to creep up a little bit because we've had like today we received some strong GDP growth that put us above what the projections were. So investors are, we're seeing a little bit more risk on trade. Investors are a little bit more interested in equities. So again, it was, really good timing that we sold when we did, because we wouldn't have made out quite as well in today's market. The following page that says tax exempt market overview from the bond buyer, this is just a 4-week snapshot of what rates had done up to the week of pricing, and you can see that downward trend, that huge drop of from 4.10 to about 3.8. That's what the market was doing leading up to the sale, and then the week after it started to climb back up again. So this, something to keep in mind about market pricing. The following page is weekly benchmark interest rates, and I'm not going to go through this. I'll just point out the bottom part of the page, the bond buyer 20 GEO bond index. Again, that 3.88 was the current average rate of GEO bonds in the market. The max was 5.41, the low was 2.8, so we even did below the minimum. So again, very favorable. And then on the tax exempt market overview MMD, the only thing I want to just call your attention to is on the top of the page in the middle, what's labeled historical MMD credit spreads to AAA. So this shows you spreads to the AAA MMD index based on the rating that you receive from the credit rating agency. So if you recall, Moody's assigned the county a rating of A2, and so typically A to AAA would give you what's shown here in that top or light colored line. That shows you kind of the spreads. So the spreads are narrower right now than we've seen in the market in the past, but we're still looking at about 20 to 30 basis points of spread based on that kind of a rating, but we did not see that impact you guys in terms of the bond sale. So again, favorable. And then the next two pages, I'm not really going to go over them. They're just supply and demand statistics in the market, and it's just demonstrating that there's a lot of, the week that we sold, there was just a lot of dollars chasing after very few deals, so that was very helpful in driving down the yields. So that's all I really have in terms of an update. Next steps, we're headed towards the closing process, and I know Luis Carrasco is going to talk a little bit about that. We are planning to close on April 30th, and that's when bond proceeds will be available. And then after that, we will just continue to monitor so that all continuing disclosure and compliance guidelines are met. And if there's any interest in reinvesting the bond proceeds or anything, we can also monitor for arbitrage rebate and stuff like that. So if there are any questions, sorry, I know that was a lot of information. I went through it quickly.
I have a question. A couple. At our last meeting, I asked you about the cost of issuance. It looked like it was built in at 1.75%.
That's correct.
And you said you thought that we could do better than that.
So it's built in with a bit of a cushion, and this is reflecting that cushion because all the costs haven't been tallied and broken out, so everything gets wired out at closing. So there may be a bit more than $8 million in the project fund at the end of the day, but we won't have a final tally until all the invoices are in and everything's paid out. So Charlene will start seeing those closing memos and wiring statements going across, so you'll know, in the next week or so what that total will be.
Okay. And the underwriter's discount is not normally considered part of the cost of issuance?
It is cost of issuance, but we like to break it out just to show, because the underwriters are really working on behalf of the investors, and so we just kind of like to break that out a little bit separately because they're not necessarily working on your behalf. So technically it is cost of issuance, but we like to break it out.
So by my math, put those together, it's looking more like 2.4%. Compared to 1.75.
Right, because we don't actually know what the underwriter's discount is going to be until the day of pricing. That all gets tallied into the pricing bid. That's why we can't really control for it up front. All we can do is control for the premium on the day of pricing and resize accordingly.
All right. That's I was a little disappointed that I didn't know that at the other meeting when I was asking this question. I thought those were built together.
Yeah, well, that's why we like to break it out, just to show you, because that's kind of, the underwriter's fee is kind of built into their bid, and there's just no way to know what that's going to be until it gets priced. and that's not really something that we can control for or anything like that. So all we can do is really size for premium, just to make sure that none of that comes out of the ultimate project fund, so that you do get the full $8 million in the project fund.
Right, and I appreciate that part of it. And I'm curious, on the next page, you referred to the current GEO index, bond buyers index. Does that average all ratings? Is that
Yes, that's
D minus? Okay, so that could help explain why.
Right, that's why there's some variance. There might be some lower rated bonds in there, or some, more storied kind of
Otherwise,
and stuff like that.
that spread was just enormous, so that makes sense. And when you said that we didn't know if the spread between A and AAA, you said you didn't think it affected the sale, didn't show up in the sale. Is that because you have data for AAA bonds that went to market the same day?
Yes, we looked at all the different bonds that priced, especially within the Southwest market in Texas and Mexico, and comparable sized bonds and comparable sized entities and issuers. And it didn't seem like on the day of pricing, and this is actually true in this market over the past couple of months, we're not seeing those typical spreads play out as much, just because there's so many investor dollars chasing after so few deals, so those spreads really get tightened and minimized, so we didn't really see that play in too much. So having a credit rating of A2, even though that's not, in the highest tier, actually it's the third tier, it didn't negatively impact the county at all.
Sounds like we got really lucky.
Yep, we had a good time.
Thanks very much.
Very fortuitous.
I just want to note for the record that our credit rating is affected by a lot of different kinds of things that we're going to be discussing in the next couple of months when we go to talk about budget and stuff like that. So just want to note that for the record. The other thing that I want to ask is, can you give us an idea? I would just like, for the record, for us to talk for a minute about what our prediction was last fall when we were talking about this in terms of interest rate, and this phenomenal piece of timing that gave us such a great outcome. And could you just give us an idea of what that saved us over the life of the bond compared to?
I don't have those calculations in front of me. I should have kept some of the historical documents that I've prepared for you in the past. I apologize, I don't have it with me. But I can give you a little bit of color on what's kind of occurred over the market to lead up to the rates that we were seeing in early April and even into today. So from about late 2016 all the way through the third quarter of 2018, we just saw rapidly rising interest rates, so way off of the lows that we saw in like 2015, 2016. I mean, they just went way up, about 250 basis points. And then, so we had a bit of a reversal in that in October, November of 2018. There was a lot of volatility in the equity markets. I think there was a lot of uncertainty around the trade and tariff issues with China, divergent central bank policies across, Brexit fueled into it. So there's a lot of risk-off sentiment among investors that fueled a lot of investors pulling their dollars out of equities and sheltering it in safer investments like fixed income and municipal paper. So it drove yields down quite a bit, and what really sort of sealed the deal and created the environment that we saw during the week of pricing was during the last week of March, the Fed met, and they backed away from their tightening policy and indicated that they're projecting weaker economic growth, weaker GDP, potentially heading towards a recession, made the investors very nervous, announced that they were no longer booking in rate hikes for the rest of 2019 and potentially even further in 2020. They halted or indicated that they are planning to halt their $50 billion a month roll-off into balance sheet. So again, complete backing away from their tightening policy that they've pursued over the past couple of years. So again, that put a huge amount of downward pressure on yields and led to the market conditions that we saw in the day of pricing. So things that we really couldn't have anticipated, but a happy circumstance.
Sure. Well, thank you very much.
Certainly.
Any further questions?
Thank you.
Sure.
So next one's agenda item J.
Chairman Ponce, members of the commission, Louis Cross with the Rody Law Firm, your bond counsel. And so we have a couple of items dealing with the bond sale that Lolly was just describing. The first one is the presentation of the final term certificate. And you'll recall that when we were discussing the bond sale over the previous months, the board elected to use its authority to delegate final pricing to the county manager in this instance. And so when you exercise that authority, the 2017 amendments to the Supplemental Public Securities Act say that she, as the designee, the board's designee, has to come back and present this report that's in front of you today. So by doing that today, we're fulfilling that part of the statutory requirements. And it simply just certifies that the final pricing on the bonds comply with the parameters and conditions that the board set for her in the adoption of Ordinance 01902, which authorized the issuance and sale of the bonds. So just to go quickly through that, the par amount of the bonds is $7,695,000. The parameter that the board set was a maximum principal amount of $8 million, so we're under that. The bonds mature on September 1st of each year, beginning this year, 2019, and a final maturity of 2033. If you might recall, the board's parameters set forth a latest maturity date of 2033, so it aligns perfectly with that requirement. If you were interested, the schedule, the debt service maturity schedule is an attachment to the final term certificate. As Lolly mentioned, the true interest cost was 2.359504 or 2.36, rounded up. You set a maximum true interest cost of 5%, so well under that parameter. The maximum coupon was 5%, and that was the maximum that you allowed under the ordinance. The bonds are going to be sold to the Baker Group LP. They were the successful bidder. Lolly mentioned the premium that was yielded as the sale. That totaled $495,458.55. As she mentioned, a lot of that will go to pay off to pay the cost of issuance on the bonds. The underwriter's discount was 0.655113%. You set a maximum rate of 1%, so well under that limit as well. As we've spoken before, the bonds are secured by ad valorem taxes levied on all taxable property in the county without limit as to rate or amount. The bonds are fully registered in authorized denominations and subject to the book entry system. We'll send the bonds to DTC, and they administer the book entry system and how the bonds are tracked. The bonds are numbered R1 through R15, since there are 15 serial maturities. And as Lolly mentioned, the bonds maturing on and after September 1st, 2030 are subject to redemption at your option as early as September 1st, 2029 or later at 100% of par plus accrued interest to the call date upon due notice as set forth in the ordinance. So that's pretty much the gist of the final term certificate. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have on that.
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay. And then the second item is the adoption of the written procedures for ongoing tax compliance. So as you know, the bonds that you just, or will close on April 30th are tax exempt bonds. And when you issue tax exempt bonds, there's all sorts of rules and regulations of the Internal Revenue Service that you have to follow. And we'll also file what's called a Form 8038G with the IRS, notifying the IRS that the county has issued tax exempt bonds, putting the IRS on notice that you now have to follow the regulations that govern tax exempt bonds. And so on that Form 8038, there's a little box on the second page, and Chairman, you'll see this, I'll point it out to you when you sign the 8038, that just asks whether the government has a written policy for ensuring how you monitor and maintain compliance with all of those tax regulations. And so this is the policy that we're asking you to adopt today, so that that we can check that box. No one really knows what happens if you don't check that box. Most people assume that it might, if you don't check it, you might have a higher risk of audit from the IRS. That's all conjecture. We want to play on the safe side here, so we are asking you to adopt this procedure just so we can, in good faith, check that box and hopefully get whatever benefits checking the box yields to the commission. But that sort of minimizes the importance. It is very important to monitor compliance with the tax regulations. And so this is the vehicle by which you set forth the procedures that you as the county are going to follow. Not only for this issuance, I'll point out, it certainly does govern the 2019 bonds, but we've also made it apply to any future tax-exempt bond sales that you do. So you'll have a policy in place that you can look back to and say, yes, this is what we said we're going to do, these are the promises we're going to make. We identified a certain person who's responsible for sort of overseeing all of this and a process that'll take place. So I'll just run through the highlights really quickly for you. And it basically says you're setting forth this policy. It's yours to amend or rescind if you want to. It just provides that if you do that, you need to notify your financial advisor, the treasurer, who is the paying agent for the bonds here, and bond counsel, and the underwriter of any changes, just so that we know that there's a different procedure in place. Through the adoption of this resolution, you're designating the Director of Fiscal Services, who is currently Linda Vasquez, I believe, as the responsible person for ensuring compliance with the tax compliance certificate. That's one of the certificates that will be issued at closing, and really goes into depth about what you can and can't do with tax-exempt bonds, the promises that you're making, the requirements to pay arbitrage to the federal government if the yield that gets paid on requires such payment, and so on and so forth. And other covenants of the county, including dissemination of the annual financial information filing. So you're specifically naming out the Director of Fiscal Services to be responsible for that process. It does allow, she may not be in her position forever. Any successor Director of Fiscal Service will be responsible for it. So it'll be really important for that person to know that this policy exists, and to make sure and review on a recurring cycle that the county's meeting its obligations under the policy. One feature is also that when the Director of Fiscal Services leaves his or her position, that person has the responsibility to explain in detail the provisions of the tax certificate, this policy, and give notice of the succession to the financial advisor, bond counsel, and the paying agent. It also provides that at least 6 months prior to each 5-year anniversary of the date of issuance of the bonds, that the responsible person has to retain an arbitrage consultant to prepare a report determining yield of bonds and any amounts due to the IRS under Section 148 of the tax code, or to ensure that all requirements under 148 have been satisfied. It's a fairly common practice, and especially with larger issues or more sophisticated issues. They have somebody on contract who, is basically an accounting firm that knows what the rules governing arbitrage are, and making sure that you're making any payments that are required, because those payments are due on each fifth anniversary date of the issuance of the bonds. And then that report has to be submitted to bond counsel, the financial advisor, the purchasing agent, no later than 30 days before each of those 5-year anniversaries. Further, the Director of Fiscal Services has to establish a tracking and monitoring system for the use of facilities and equipment financed with bond proceeds, to ensure that use does not violate the private use and financing test under Section 141 of the code, and if violations do occur, that the county will contact the financial advisor, bond counsel, underwriter, and to undertake a closing agreement with the IRS's VCAP program, that's voluntary compliance. So when somebody commits a no-no with the IRS, they do have an office in place that will work with issuers to bring them into compliance or into a closing agreement that will sort of rectify the violation. It usually involves some sort of payment of a penalty, sort of all over the place, but I wanted you to be aware of that in case it is determined in the future that your use of the of tax-exempt bond proceeds strayed from the requirements that are imposed on it.
Can you give us an example of what would be a violation of the private business use test?
So, it's a very complicated analysis, but for private use, what you really need to know is that if you have greater than 10% being used by of the facilities financed by tax-exempt bonds, greater than 10% being used by a private entity, and the federal government is considered a private entity for the purposes of those rules, you might have a private use problem on your hands. The other, and it's not a consideration here, the private financing test means if you're paying the bonds that you derive from private sources, that could be a problem. But you have to have both. You have to have private use and you have to have private financing for you to meet the private use test. And so with general obligation bonds, which is a tax of general applicability, you're probably never going to meet the private financing test, and therefore you fail the private use test, which is a good thing. So you should be okay. The procedures also require a regular review of the procedures, at least annually, and at certain other milestones and events that are all laid out in subsection E here for you, to identify and address possible federal tax requirements. And finally, the Director of Fiscal Services, or the responsible person, is required to develop and implement a records maintenance system for the procedures and records to be maintained for the life of the bonds. So these records have to be completed as long as the bonds are outstanding, plus 4 years. So you have a 15-year term life of the bonds here, so for 19 years you're going to need to keep those records on hand. And finally, just providing contact information for your designated responsible person, and then providing that you can change the responsible person. You just need to give notice to the appropriate authorities of doing that. So just wanted you to be aware of that. This is a pretty standard form that we use for a lot of our issues. It seems to work for almost anybody, most of our clients so far. If there were any concerns that you had, we could certainly think about customizing if we need to, but we can do that in the future if we need to, because it's amendable, as I mentioned. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on the written procedures for tax compliance.
Any questions?
I think I would just try a summary question. It's your advice as our counsel that all of the uses to which we plan to put this financing will be legitimate within these.
Yeah, and it's a reasonable expectations test. So as of the date that we issued the bonds, and we've worked with the county to look at what the proposed uses are. We believe those all fall within the acceptable uses of tax bonds. When this comes up, actually, is if you change plans. So I'll encourage you, if your plans change and you want to dedicate proceeds for another use that we never discussed with you or aren't addressed in the tax compliance certificate, that's possible. You just need to come talk to us to make sure you're not violating any of those tax rules. And I'll add to that, the tax expectations for the county are really spelled out in depth. It's like a 30 to 40 page certificate that will be part of the transcript that we'll be executing at closing, and really goes into depth with the county about here's what we're planning to do, here's what we're bound by, here's the county's expectations as to how we comply with those requirements.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up to that. So I think I heard that you said that the use of this money is pretty much set by the plan that was provided. But it's not set in stone. If there was some alternative uses, they could be accomplished, but they would have to follow the process.
Yes, it's a little more nuanced than that, though. You'll recall that these are GO bonds, and that meant that you had to pose the question about whether to issue the bonds to the voters or not. So you set a sort of range of permissible uses there as well. So that's sort of the first step, is what we're planning. If this changed plan in bond proceeds use, is that consistent with what we asked the voters to authorize? And if it's not, that's sort of just a non-starter. But if it is within the call of the question, then we'll get into the more nuanced issue of, okay, is this consistent with what we believed was the reasonable expectations for the use of the fund at the time when we issued the bonds? If it isn't, how can we structure that plan for use, or work with the IRS to make sure that they're not going to come back and say you violated the rules and now the bonds are taxable, and the investors are going to be looking to you to be made whole for that exemption on interest that they thought they had that they no longer do. How this often happens, and I'm the bond counsel for the state of New Mexico too, so they issue a lot of these bonds, and as you can imagine, plans for buildings, or, they construct a building with one use in mind, and 3 years down the road, they want to use it for a completely different purpose. And maybe there's a private contractor in there, or they're going to lease it to the federal government. Those are new circumstances that all have to be evaluated before you finalize that plan, because as we said, those could all affect potentially the taxability of the bonds. So if there are any anticipated changes in bond usage as we go forward, it's just imperative that you talk with your advisors to make sure you're not running afoul of the IRS regs.
Well, and I asked that because during the public comment, there was mention to see, if there was possibility of taking some of this new bond and making some improvements to our Baton Park facility.
Yeah, and it's certainly possible. You'll just want to do the due diligence to make sure that that's not going to cause the county any problems with the IRS.
Thank you.
Do we have any further questions? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion that we adopt the written procedures for ongoing tax compliance regarding county bond issues. Second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Edwards, a second by Commissioner Brown. Discussion? No discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Back to R.
So now we're agenda item R, consideration to temporarily suspend rentals of Baton Park Pavilion.
I believe on the call I promised to move to table this item. And I so move. Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Brown to table, second by Commissioner Edwards. Any discussion?
One item, there was a question about an October reservation. Have we clarified that?
When we went back and looked at the calendar, there's several in October. There's some probably the end of the year. And I reread the policy, and obviously, we've changed it since I've been here. I guess it used to say 6 months. It doesn't say 6 months now, so I would propose changing that as well. So, depending on how we decide to, we'll know more once we start looking at how we address the issues that are with the pavilion, and then how we will work with those who have placed deposits for rentals.
So as it stands now, we're not taking new reservations past July 31, but there are a number of outstanding reservations.
Well, sorry.
No, please go ahead. This is a conundrum.
So, my understanding was in the work session one was a wedding. We're going to have to decide. There's not very many venues in Grant County, and then picking that, just throwing this out for our consideration when we revisit this is working with those people. I understand the deposit, but I don't think the deposit is the issue here. I think the plans that they have to make and go forward on that, we're going to have to be real careful with. So just food for thought, and probably revisit it next month and decide what direction we need to go.
I do have some ideas on this. If we were to close all the places that we have potential hazards, and liability to the county, we would probably have to close everything. So, one of the things that I'd like to see is, I see the major liability at the building is the access. Okay, I see the biggest liability is not having the handicap parking and then some type of ramp to overcome that small lip at the front door. So, could we explore maybe taking current dollars, finding current dollars to have a pad with dedicated handicap parking and the ramp is needed at the door. And that doesn't seem to be an enormous amount. The ramp is going to be simple, the pad would be simple, and that would address the major liability that there is there.
Okay, so, and I think that was a discussion last time, is they were gonna go out for pricing and look at what the cost would be, so we can, in June or whatever month it is, look at what the cost would be and see where we need to go from there.
So I have a question about liability related to ADA issues. It's been a while since I've been exposed to this, and so maybe the rules and laws have changed, but back in the day, when there was an ADA issue that was brought forth, and the government body decided that they were going to move forward in taking action to resolve that, it didn't seem to be an immediate liability. Is that the case? Is that still the case? In other words, if we're going to take plans to look for money in the next while, we've recognized we have ADA compliance issues. If we're going to recognize and start looking for money to take care of that, do we have to suspend rentals there, or can we start looking for monies? Because I like Commissioner Edwards' suggestion about our bond rating. I don't want to pull out of our operational fund to jeopardize Sheriff's Department raises for this when we can get other monies within a reasonable time. Now, if there's a clear and present danger of liability because somebody can't access the park and we need to take care of it immediately, then I'd be open to considering that. But if this is something that can wait till monies are available to address this, that's what I'd prefer to do. So can you address that, Manager?
I can try, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The advice we received from the architect is that you can start making an attempt at addressing it. You don't have to smile at all or nothing sort of thing. What we could do is look at, we can go out and start looking, address the pavilion first. And maybe that's when you need to, that would be the trigger to determine when you wanted to suspend the rentals, is when we have to start construction on that particular project. Misha and I talked about this briefly this morning. We would like to probably look at a design build component, which would tie everything together. We don't have to go get an architect, we don't have to go get an engineer. It's a one-stop shop. To take a look at this, we could do that, have a design build firm take a look at it, we bring that back to you, you make the decision, do we have the money, where can we find the money, and at that point you could determine, okay, we'll look at starting construction in October, then we would spend those, or after the first of the year, or that's our collective thoughts as staff.
Mr. Chair, that sounds like a really viable plan to me. We'll put this back on county management where it belongs instead of setting hours. We've given direction, I think, from what Manager Webb just said. They've seen the vision of what we want to do there. We want to keep the facility at the Tom Park open, usable for the public. If there's any safety issues that need to be addressed there, those can be addressed by county staff immediately. But the ADA compliance issues, if we've got some time to start working in a reasonable direction, I don't see any need to suspend rentals at Baton Park till we're ready to go with the county's plan. And thanks for putting that together.
No, that wasn't done. I think that might have been Commissioner Salas.
Well, I'd like to know if there's anything that we can do for in-house. First, go to our finance person and say, hey, where do we have money? Where can we access money? Is there any pot of money anywhere that can be accessed to address if you put a hierarchy of needs into that thing and say, this here is the most potential to give us, it's problematic there at the pavilion. And right now, what I see, the most potential, the biggest need that we have is the front door accessibility. So can that be solved by putting up a ramp and maybe some railings? I think so. Is that a tremendous expense? I don't think so. And I don't know if the county, through the maintenance or whatever, has the capability of pouring cement. They used to. I don't know if you would have to go to a contractor now. But certainly, that could be addressed and really minimize our liability and keep that place open. And then from that point on, we can look for money, because I'd like to see it go into capital outlay for next year.
Me too.
And I think, I know that I'm in agreement with that as far as capital outlay. And I think and one of my discussions of what I had said is I don't mind suspending rentals as long as we are in the process of fixing and repairing things. I am not for suspending rentals if it's just going to sit there. And I think what you spoke about too is if you look at our fiscal year, right now we're coming to the end of our fiscal year. So this would probably be something that, as a board of commissioners, maybe giving direction and looking at the new fiscal year coming in, which will probably be a lot easier instead of right now, and looking at what monies can be available to take on some of these projects.
Well,
that would be my idea.
I'd like to go further and see if we have any current monies available. I mean, what I'm proposing isn't, a huge amount. You're talking about pouring some cement. Commissioner Billings, you've been there. You see the problem that was there at that front door. And that is a huge potential, even for a non-disabled person, to trip and fall in. So if we just fix that, and then, because if you put this on capital outlay, you're not going to know anything for another year, and you won't be getting money for another year.
Maybe I'm wishful thinking, but I'm hoping there's other sources of money available and again, if this is a safety issue, I think it needs to be addressed immediately. If it's an ADA issue, I think as long as we're working towards addressing it. But I certainly don't think we need to suspend rentals at Baton Park. I think we can move forward, put this back with the county management, bring some issues and keep renting out Baton Park and get ready to and address any safety issues out there. And the one that you're talking about, maybe one Randy's going to have to decide that.
If I might clarify, as I heard Commissioner Salas' proposal, the primary difference between it and what Manager Webb had suggested was you felt we didn't need to go out to bid for a whole design-build contract. That you felt we could do the design and the work in-house. Otherwise, I think the timing is that we're going to do it as quickly as we can in both cases.
Well, at least for what I consider to be the most pending issue, what's the worst, which would be the front door access.
Okay, you also mentioned the ramp and the pad from the parking, which I think is
more extensive. That's one and the same.
I'm not sure that's one and the same.
I think you're just talking the pavilion itself, right?
Yeah. Okay, well, so I think it's important to be specific. The door access, if you're just talking about the lip, is quite small. If you're talking about pouring a pad in the parking lot and doing the ADA grade, either 1 to 12 or 1 to 20, depending if there's a handrail, that's bigger. If you're talking about changing the height of the kitchen counters in facilities, that's bigger yet, right? So there are these different levels. And the only level I'm comfortable even considering skipping design build RFP would be the lip at the door. That I do believe we could probably pull something like that off in-house. But as soon as you're also talking about the pad and the graded ramp, that's big enough that I think we should not do that ourselves.
No, and I'm not talking about the graded ramp, because we can overcome that by simply making it a drive-in park until we decide exactly what we're going to do. And to tell you the truth, most of the time, that's how access is taken there. Okay? I just think that the lip, right there, but also you need some kind of a pad with dedicated parking, so that any person could, a disabled could, be in a wheelchair, a walker, and access that. So I think that the lip and the pad would be one and the same. But we could get, somebody to give us an estimate on it. And if we have in-house personnel that can provide us with that, that's fine. Because in the past, I know that the county has poured a lot of it. Hell, the county poured that whole cement parking lot. So unless things have changed, I don't think that pouring a pad and that addressing the lip there at the door is an unsurmountable challenge.
I agree with that. So maybe I can withdraw my motion, because now we're on to another issue. And if you would like to enunciate a different motion, Commissioner Salas, go for it.
Well, I would make a motion that certainly with the thought from Mr. Bills is to keep it open, but to go ahead and address, the front door accessibility by providing some type of a ramp and some kind of a path for parking, with at least 2 or 3 parking spaces, because there's a lot of other things there. I'll just keep it to that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Salas.
Not sure there's a second.
I think I could second that with the idea of turning that over to county management and having them come back with, as long as Baton Park, as the rentals are not suspended, the safety issues are taken care of, and then that would be turned over to county management to decide what our best options are as far as whether to do design build or put out the bid. Or I share Commissioner Salas's concerns with frustrations of how government has to do business, but I also realize that their liability is bigger than my personal one. Sometimes, maybe I shouldn't say this, sometimes we try to take care of things as efficiently as we can in compliance with the law, but I also, it is a frustration that when government does it, it just seems like there's an over-involvement of architects and engineers and stuff, but sometimes we get into that in private too. It just has to be done right, and I want to delegate that back to the county management to bring us forth the plan. Would that work?
Well,
and to accomplish what you're wanting to accomplish.
At least, Ms. Webb can bring us back and say, hey, yes, we can do this project, or no, we'd have to take it to bid. If we take it to bid, it would approximately cost X. And then we would know what we're getting into. And then that way we could, with more clearer mind, say, let's just keep that place open. Okay. So let me take back my motion.
So you want to withdraw your motion?
Withdraw my motion. And that doesn't have to be seconded or anything, right?
No.
So, and let me just amend it and make a motion that we table this till the next meeting, so that we can get some information as specific to what we were talking about.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Mr. Chairman, before you do that, I think what's on here is what would fall within this agenda item before the first passage. Right now, you have, does your motion include lifting the suspension on rentals?
Remember, we have the suspension on rentals beginning.
Well, he withdrew his motion, so that's...
He's making a new one.
I'm just making a motion to table this item until next
I
week.
still feel like you need to resolve the issue of, are you going to continue with the suspension on rentals?
And I thought we had already voted to suspend rentals until July 31st, and that's already passed. So what we're trying to do now is because of what's coming up in October and the rentals that have occurred, I think when we get closer to the next month and we have more information, then make a decision on that, correct? That's where we're headed with
I don't
that.
think we have to address the July 31st thing at all right now.
No, right, that's already been there.
So you want to continue with that? Is that what you're saying?
But we're not discussing whether we continue that or not. We've already decided that. What we're... I thought we were discussing that. Among other
It is on the
things.
agenda.
It is on the agenda.
But the decision's already been made.
And I heard a lot of sentiment for, I thought that was sentiment for removing the suspension, because I thought the idea was it was a small project, and we could fit it in between reservations possibly, and we didn't want to slow down the use of the park. That's what I thought you all were talking about.
Right.
Now that we're talking about potentially staging it and doing a small thing first, I actually could be on board with that. I was the one who first wanted to stop the reservations so that we'd have time to do a big project. But if we're just looking at a small one, then I support lifting the suspension, which is on the agenda.
And I thought that was Commissioner Fillings.
Well, I support letting management come back to us, as Mr. Saul said, next month with a plan, and then we'll...
I thought that's what you said.
I didn't make a motion or anything about the suspension.
I'm sorry, I really thought at the last meeting we passed.
We did.
Right, you did, but you wanted to talk about it again.
That's right. Okay.
That's agenda. That's why it's back on here.
So I have something to say about this whole conversation. And that is, we're stuck in this idea about talking about liability. But I want to go back to something that the architect said the other day in the work session. And this isn't just about liability, it's about doing what's right at the pavilion. And Tuesday, when we talked about this, I suggested that when he said it was $50,000 to $100,000 to fix it, I suggested that we simply find a way to do that. And to me, that was the direction to county staff to find a way to do that. And the thing that I think is really important about this, the clarification that I want to make between just talking about liability and talking about doing what is right, is that if we do a temporary fix that isn't right and somebody falls thinking that this pad or whatever is compliant and somebody falls out of their wheelchair, it's more than a liability issue, it's an injury to a human being. And if we're going to fix the pavilion and we're going to get people in the front door, then they have to be able to use the rest of the facility, including the countertops and, the kitchen and all that sort of stuff. And so I would like to suggest that we consider this as more than a liability issue. It's about making the pavilion usable for people who are not 100% physically capable of using the facility. And so allowing county staff to figure out if we can do this through CES or whomever, county staff or, maintenance department or whoever, and then come back to us with a solution that isn't just about liability, but makes the pavilion usable for all the people that want to use it.
Very well said. Okay, thank you.
I think that's the direction we want to work in.
And in that case, it seems to me we should lift the suspension of rentals. We already have rentals through, sounds like the end of the year even. We're going to leave it up to staff to figure out the timing. I don't see any reason for us to impose that as a board. So I move that we lift the suspension that we previously passed on rentals at the Baton Park Pavilion.
And I think, hold on, I think Commissioner Salas, you withdrew your motion.
I withdrew my motion.
Then you made another motion, but we didn't get a second, so.
So that died for lack of a second. And then now we have a motion to lift the suspension that was previously imposed by Commissioner Edwards, and second by Commissioner Salas.
That was my motion, not Commissioner Edwards. Yeah.
I mean, Commissioner Brown, sorry. The motion made by Commissioner Brown, second by Commissioner Salas. Any further discussion?
So I do have a further discussion point on this. Is it possible, and I'm asking this question to the county manager and to the community planning department, can we have some solutions to look at by the May meeting? Is it possible?
Possible, but I cannot guarantee it.
So it seems to me like it would make sense to not lift the suspension until we get a look at what the solution could possibly be. And I'm sorry for revisiting this, but if it takes until May, if we don't look at the solutions until the May meeting, and then we fill in a bunch more reservations between July 31st and the end of the year, in addition to the ones that we already have, then it slows down the process. And what I hear Commissioner Salas saying very clearly is that he wants a solution sooner than later. I absolutely agree with that. And so I think giving county staff a little bit of time to figure out what the most timely, quickest solution is that meets our needs is appropriate, and in that case, we should revisit the suspension thing in May. Sorry.
Sorry.
They're both logical.
I tend to agree with that.
So how long would it be before we have a report? And I know that...
I think she said she'd do her best to get it to us in May, right?
I want to give reassurance. There are, we talked about it, the design build is the quickest, simplest way that I can get you something to look at.
And that's $50,000 or less through CES, not having to go through the procurement process. So you can approach that by, what can we get for $50,000, right? We can do Commissioner Salas's immediate concerns and perhaps address the rest of the things that I've talked about that make it good for everybody, right?
There are several firms that are available under the CES process. There's one that we're currently working with that is on site. I'm meeting with staff this afternoon to talk about this very thing after this discussion. We're ready to move forward. Your message is loud and clear. We're already working on it. Just need a very clear direction as to where we're going. I think you've made that today. We're beginning to work as soon as this afternoon. First conversation will be with the current design build firm that we're using. They're on site, they're here, have them take a look at it. So I would do my very best to have an answer to you by May, but I can't sit here and guarantee you that I can.
Well,
but I will do my very best.
Any information is better than no information, so I don't think we need a complete design build for the whole park, just whatever information you can get us back.
Just
all
want to fix the
pavilion.
That's right.
Well, I don't think it needs to be complete for all the pavilion. If we address the outside ADA issues, the countertop and the men's bathroom issue may come later. That'd be up to county management what information you can get.
So on the topic of suspending or not the suspension of reservations, I wonder if Manager Webb feels she needs us to impose that suspension. Then I feel like we spent a lot of time talking about something that really you and your staff could handle by yourselves deciding to block out a period of time and to refuse to make reservations. Don't you have that authority already?
I thought I did, but I'm not exactly sure.
So rather than having to wait for us to change the rules for staff, my motion would allow staff to impose their own block of time already. To me, that's the most efficient way to get it done fast, not to have to wait for a commission meeting to do something. So
that I can live with.
And I understand that, but if you look at what we did, is we said July would be the last, July 31st, and then we would stop taking, well, the staff went ahead and accepted to October.
I believe those were already in place before we made that July 31st deadline?
Don't know that. We'd have to check.
I thought that's what Randy said when we were on the phone.
So,
That we just didn't know about them at the time, but they were there.
and I agree with you, I'm just saying that
Actually, he didn't know. He thought maybe they had been taken after July 31st. After we made that, after we imposed it.
The way our reservation system is, it's not automated, it's penciled in on the calendar. I have no way to tell you. I could go back to the paperwork, but partially that's my fault because we talked about looking past graduation. So I looked 2 months past graduation. I should have looked to the end of the year, so I'm completely to blame for that one. I thought we were getting past graduation, and that's as far as I looked.
In any case, I still want my motion to be voted on, because I think that we should leave that discretion to the staff.
So what is your motion?
My motion is to lift the suspension that we imposed last time on taking new reservations, and to leave it up to management to decide what period of time there should be no new reservations taken.
Oh, I can second that. I misunderstood your motion.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Brown, second by Commissioner Edwards. Billings.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm good. So any discussion on that?
Are we crystal clear that we are giving the authority to county staff to decide a period of time in which this construction can happen and not take reservations? Are we crystal clear on that?
Yes.
I am, but I'm also clear that we're going to take quick steps to get it resolved.
That's right.
And the other part that comes from me, and I've said this probably every meeting, I think, is I don't want it just sitting there and nothing being done with it. And we're not accepting reservations.
That's right. All right. So there we go.
And my concern, not to in any way be argumentative with Commissioner Salas, is that I think as quickly as possible, as long as we're not dipping into monies that could be used for what we are statutorily obligated to do, which would be right back to the Sheriff's Department. So I hope that money is available outside of our operational budget. If it's not, I certainly don't want it to interfere with the sheriff's deputies' raises. So as fast as we can get that resolved, without jeopardizing law enforcement and some other statutory obligations that we have.
So I think public safety, I mean, I think we're all on the same page here as far as public safety. That's a major concern for Grant County, so I think we can work through that.
And I think the whole point of the budgeting process is so that you don't have to worry about that, right? We've established budgets, and we have not authorized her to take money from one pot and give it to another.
Okay, I just don't want to wake up down the road and, there's no money for that, for the sheriff's raises because we spent
No,
it.
I'm suggesting that we take a good hard look at our finances and being it is towards the end of the year, seeing if we can find money. It's my understanding, and working in budget sometimes, not all the costs have been exhausted.
I think we're all on the same page now.
Okay.
So no further discussion? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
On to page 3.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I move that we approve agreement number A1910, Transportation Road Use and Road Maintenance Agreement.
I second that.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that's fine. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve agreement number A19-11, fiscal year 2018-19 audit contract.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Billings, second. That motion, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve agreement number A19-12, Lodgers Tax Marketing Services.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? No discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I move that, and since they go together, I'm going to move that we approve A1913 and A1914 together for services, commissary and food services for the detention center.
Keeping on a motion by Commissioner Edwards.
Second. All right. Mr.
Second.
Salas.
Commissioner Salas, second. Any discussion?
And it's my fault that I haven't read these items. You said they go together because it's the same contractor? Okay, thanks. I haven't looked at that yet.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carried.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve agreement number A1915 between the State of New Mexico CYFD and the County of Grant for alternative to detention services for juvenile justice, the Scary Stanley's and other folks program.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Billings, second the motion. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Mr. Chair, I move that we approve agreement number A1916, MOU between the County of Grant, New Mexico and AFSCME, amending the bargaining unit contract for Article 41, Safety Section 41-7.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Billings, second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve resolution number R1916, adoption of Grant County social media policy.
I'll second that.
Okay, one motion, second by Commissioner Billings. Any discussion?
I do have a clarifying question on this. Our discussion about social media has been that we want to at least partially use it to reach a wider audience. And I'm wondering about the fact that young people, I understand, think Facebook is completely passé, and they use Instagram and Snapchat. Should we be including Instagram and Snapchat in this policy? You list, at the end of the policy, you list all the things that it covers, and those two things are not included.
Maybe you could amend.
I will do that. Mr. Chair, I would like to move amend my motion to resolution number R19-16 to include Instagram and Snapchat.
I'll second the amended motion.
Any discussion?
I don't know how we anticipate what the next new thing will be in social media, right? I would rather delete the list than have to add something to the list every time something pops up. And I'm partly thinking this because Snapchat's a completely inappropriate forum for county information to go out on. It's just wrong. But the bigger picture is the five of us are very ill prepared to make this decision, and I'd much rather...
I'll amend the motion again.
Really?
I will.
Okay.
I'll amend it to give the authority to decide what those are to the county manager and county staff.
In which case, we'd be striking this entire paragraph, correct?
There are two places that the list appears, and so we would be striking the list in both places.
Before I second that,
Is that okay with you?
I'll second that motion.
I see the one on page 5.
Trust me,
It's in there somewhere?
It's in
just
there
not in the
somewhere.
bulleted form.
Correct. It's not in the bullet. The first time it appears, it's not in bulleted form.
Where it says commonly used social media websites, I don't care about that, because that's just a whereas.
Well, yeah, okay.
I don't think that we need to make a change to that. Just so we can be specific about it, can we just say we're striking the list of official county social media sites that's on page 5?
Leaving it to the county staff's, county manager and county staff's discretion.
Do you need more than that?
It already says in there that the county manager has to approve it.
Perfect. So it's in alignment with everything else.
Okay.
Okay, so what's the motion? Can we...
Can I restate it?
Yes, restate it.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I would like to move that we approve resolution number R1916 with the change to strike the list of approved media and leave the choices of media up to the county manager and county staff, as Abby has already written in other places in the document.
I'll second that.
Do we have any further discussion on it? No discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move that we recess as the Grant County Board of Commissioners and convene as the Grant County Health Care Claims Board.
Second the motion.
Motion by Commissioner Billings, second by Commissioner Brown. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Mr. Chair, I approve that we approve the indigent burial from Bacchus Funeral Home.
I'll second that.
Do we have to convene? Are you supposed to bang your gavel or say we're convened? Did you do that? I'm so used to
Okay, we're going to convene as the Grant County Health Care Claims Board.
Nice. Thank you, Chris.
Motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the indigent burial from Bacchus Funeral Home.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the health care claim in the amount of $13,495.02.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion, second by Commissioner Brown. Any discussion?
I'd just like to say that it's always good when these numbers are trending down, and thank the county manager and Mr. Terrio for their actions that result in that.
Any further discussion? No discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn as the Grant County Health Care Claims Board and reconvene as the Grant County Board of Commissioners.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
No, you didn't. Whatever. You can have your own style.
There you go.
That's just what I was used to.
Okay, Commissioners' reports. Commissioner Salas, do you have anything to report?
Well, I just have a comment that I'd like to make. In this day and age, it's refreshing to see people just working together. It crosses lines, and I'm happy that we're working together. And even though we'll have different opinions and different things that are special to us, I think that we've been working together for the good of Grant County, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bowles?
Thanks, I second that. It's been a pleasure. I submitted to the commissioners a written response to some public comment that was given earlier relative to wildlife services. This is given to the best of my knowledge and ability in a hastily written thing late last night and early this morning. I believe my comments to be factual, and there was one more comment that made this morning that I'd like to follow up on, and I'll try to do that. And I just did that in writing to save time during commissioner comments. And I'd be glad to make that available to I've made it available to the clerk for the minutes, and to Mr. Griffin, and I'd be glad to make it available to the press. Thank you. That's it.
Commissioner Edwards?
So, I have one comment, and it is my understanding that we are going to address this more formally at the May meeting. But I just want to say that Sheriff Gomez mentioned in our last meeting that one of his deputies saved someone's life in Las Cruces. Did appear in the newspaper. I recently became aware of the fact that that person was Sergeant Manny Maldonado. And like I said, we are going to more formally recognize this in the May meeting. But I just want to say that I think it's appropriate that we recognize Sergeant Maldonado for his actions, but I also think that it is appropriate that we acknowledge that although his actions were exemplary, I don't think that is, his exemplary actions were the exception to the actions that law enforcement practices here in Grant County. I think we have an amazing group of people at the Sheriff's Department and at all the other law enforcement agencies in Grant County, and that Sergeant Maldonado's actions exemplify what all of our law enforcement in this county does on a daily basis, and that is do their very best at risk of life and limb to make sure that all of us are safe. And I sincerely appreciate Sergeant Maldonado's actions and all of law enforcement in Grant County. Thank you.
Commissioner Brown?
Just a brief thing leading up to our budget discussions, a chance to let you all know where I'm at. I was pleased to hear someone else mention the $25,000 that went to the golf course. This is something I've mentioned in the last couple of years. I think there's an imbalance in our support of that as an economic development tool and our support of other things that I think are equally important or perhaps more important. So I'm letting you know that since I wasn't here at that time, I appreciate questioning that expenditure. I look forward to talking about it in the budget discussion.
Thank you.
I did want to second Commissioner Salas's comments as well. Or third them. About what? Mr. Dillon. Oh, about us working together.
And for me, it just, same thing with Commissioner Soto's sentiments there. It's been a pleasure working with this Board of Commissioners. I've learned a lot, and you guys have taught me a lot. And I really appreciate that. I think we are maybe not totally agreeing on something, but there's very good discussions to come to consensus on issues that are put before us. And what I have noticed about this commission is that we have the public interest at heart, and that's what we should be about, and that's what we represent. On another note, I really like to commend the county staff and county elected officials. What I have noticed a lot here lately is that they have been either putting together or participating in events held within Grant County, and we'd like to thank them because they do put a lot of time and a lot of effort into those events, and then they participate and they attend events, and that just shows what kind of stuff the county does have. I really appreciate that. The other part, I guess, is just I'll leave that off for next time. I don't want to open up, but I wanted to talk about an advisory committee for maybe parks, if there was one, or reviving it, or maybe getting something put together for Baton Park, and we can visit that later so we can have public input and maybe get a direction of what they want seen, and I would love to serve on that committee, and whoever else maybe. I know we're strapped by certain rules, but and if we do have one, and if it hasn't been acted in a while, then maybe it's time to look at it.
It's the case, and I believe I'm the official appointee.
Are you? Okay.
For the dormant committee.
The dormant committee, and we can visit that.
Yeah.
Other than that, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move that we move into executive session.
The motion to move into executive session.
To discuss personnel matters regarding both the county attorney and county manager.
Yes, that.
And perhaps pursuant to NMSA 1015-1H2. Yeah. Can I second that motion?
You have a second by Commissioner Brown. Can I have a roll call?
Chairman Ponce, Commissioner Brown, Edwards, Billings, and Salas, are you all aware that you will be entering executive session?
Yes.
Yes.